Today is April 14th. With the NFL draft less than 2 weeks away, we are reaching the final days of the pre-draft portion of the offseason, where we have to make guesses about where our favorite rookies will land. Will Izzy Abanikanda continue his meteoric rise up draft boards and end up as a day 2 pick? Will an NFL team commit top 5 draft capital to physical freaks like Anthony Richardson and Will Levis, even though they might be bad at throwing the football? And yes, we are contractually obligated to once again talk about Odell Beckham Jr. Let's go. This is ADP chasing.
Pat Fryer Helmo.
This is why I'm hot.
Anita Handjob.
Fix your site.
Jamar Alpha Play Chase.
Are you kidding me? Kadarius Toney?
You can't handle the heat.
It looks like we're finally this boys. You're right.
Pat Davis, how we doing today?
Doing good.
Doing great, man. Yeah. I just, been doing some research into day 3 running backs and realized they're pretty much all. I've been negotiating against myself. Really, is what's happening.
Davis came to the horrible conclusion that the trade you just made for 2 of those backs.
They're so dead. Like Dameon Pierce as the running back 19. I honestly think he is a coin flip to get like 100 carries this year after looking at what happened to some of these guys. It's really not good.
It is interesting though, because it's like a reason to keep taking those guys, as they come into the league. Mm-hmm. But then it's like, you got to move. It's a hot product. You got to sell it while it's hot.
Well, some feedback I got was sort of interesting. And I actually think this fits in really well with ADP chasing and the idea of, especially the exercises we're doing right now, thinking about these rookies, is that NFL teams have just started to change so much how they think about running backs that what 8 years ago would have been a second round running back. I mean, a round 4, round 5 guy. I mean, teams are just not spending draft capital on these guys. So maybe a round 4, maybe we treat a round 4 running back the way we would have used to have treated a round 2 running back, and a round 2 running back should be treated how we used to think of round 1 running backs, and so on and so forth.
I think that part's probably true. Although it is interesting that we had Travis Etienne and Najee Harris go in the first round just a couple years ago, and we're going to have Bijan Robinson go in the first round this year, and we might have Jahmyr Gibbs. It's probably like sub 10%, but it's, people don't think it's insane that he could go first round. So I think that's true, but maybe like not
a
as
little
true
exaggerated.
As you're saying.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think the other really interesting thing, Davis, that you pointed out is like the undrafted running backs. There's actually been a bigger track record of success of those guys, like
5 Foster, of them. Yeah,
like some huge hits from the undrafted guys. And someone's making the point that it was sort of like a base rate issue is maybe why that's the case.
Well, there was only in the last, since 2010, so in the last 12 years, there's only been 13 undrafted free agent running backs who got 100 PPR points or more in year 1. But like 5 of those guys posted multiple running back 2 or running back 1 seasons, which is sort of, but it's like, so, then you look into it and you're like, okay, well, how did this happen? And it's like, okay, Austin Eckler, he went to a really small school, but then landed in a perfect spot. LeGarrette Blount probably would have been a second round pick, but he punched his own teammate in the face after his bowl game. So teams were like, we don't want that guy. Like, it just like, once you looked into it, you're like, well, this sort of makes sense. But then I expanded the search to round 3 just to see what it would happen. And it was like all hits, all guys. It was like Alvin Kamara, David Johnson, David Montgomery. It was like all guys who did well as rookies and all guys who got a second contract. It was like sort of nuts.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah,
I Ramondre, right? This one happened to Ramondre Stevenson, though, right?
I think it's already happening, right? James Robinson, $8 million of incentives. They draft Pierre Strong and Kevin Harris, and I would say they're probably a favorite to spend. I don't know. I'm going to guess. I don't even know the answer to this. I'm going to guess the Patriots have 14 picks in this year's draft, just based off how they normally do things, and one of those picks will be, doesn't Roschon Johnson just feel like a Patriot?
Oh no!
Doesn't Roschon Johnson just feel like a Patriot?
Yes.
Or maybe they go the other way and it's one of these ground only guys, so it's like Deuce McBride or someone like that, because they love to segment those guys into roles.
Yeah, I can see that too. Or I could see them taking Bijan. I mean, that's one of the Bijan disaster scenarios.
I want to see the 6 Belichick defenders try to twist that one around and say that's a smart pick by Belichick when they take Bijan in the first round. That's going to be
been a tough couple of years for the Belichick defenders.
Mental gymnastics on that take are going to be really impressive.
Friday, April 14th, 2023. The Atlanta Falcons are taking Bijan Robinson at 9, 8. Whichever one it is, they're taking him. Just everyone prepare to get mad for the Desmond Ridder, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson offense not being as explosive and as productive as you want it to be.
The Bijan Robinson part of that might be pretty fun. He turned Derrick Henry into a fantasy superstar.
Well, speaking of year one running backs who absolutely smash and then get shuttled into oblivion, Tyler Algier. I can't imagine. I mean, if you could get the
now, is there a reason why you're smiling from ear to ear right now, Davis?
I mean, I notedly don't necessarily love running backs who converted from linebackers. That's not something I'm into. Kerrane,
you're more into wide receivers who converted from cornerback. That
is my fetish. Yeah, is guys who basically the team looks at them and they're like, "You're so athletic, we got to find a way to get you the ball, but you have no natural innate ability to play this position." So you like McCole Hardman sort of plays wide receiver like an alien who's never played football before and just is like, yeah, just go run around. Like that's sort of his bit.
Yeah. Tyler Algier was tackling the running back so hard they were like, "You are a running back now." He's got that dog.
Cool. Well, we'll get into all these players throughout the show. I think actually maybe Algier shows up as a follower, so we can chat through that. But just for what we're going to do on today's show, we're going to do another sort of Superflex strategy debate. I think we're still on different sides.
It's the same debate.
It's the same debate, but I think I have the point I was trying to make last show. I think I do have some new data and new angles to look at it. So we'll flesh that out. And then, as we always do, we'll get into the risers and fallers. So let's kick things off, getting right into the Superflex debate. I'll lay out like a little bit of my argument and my rationale. And then, obviously you guys jump in as we go through it. But the analysis that I wanted to do, the first part, we showed this yesterday. This is just sort of like looking at the average weekly scores by the different positional tiers. And this just, I won't go through this one too much, but this helps just get you to what the replacement level thresholds are for the different positions. So essentially for running backs and wide receivers, their replacement level threshold is hitting the flex, which on average, that sort of the replacement level score there is around 9.5 points. Whereas for quarterbacks, their replacement level is a little bit higher. The average score in the Superflex is more like closer to 12 points. So their threshold for having a spike week obviously has to clear a slightly higher bar than running back or wide receiver. But compared to one quarterback leagues, this discrepancy is a lot closer. In one quarterback leagues, the replacement level score for quarterbacks is closer to 20 points. So, once you switch from one quarterback to Superflex, the potential for quarterback spike weeks are actually a lot higher just because that replacement level score is a lot lower. So this flows through to this next chart here. If you just count up the average number of spike weeks over replacement across the different positions, and I define these a couple of different ways, 10 points above replacement, 17.5 above replacement, and 25 above replacement. You see that quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers are pretty close in just terms of the number of them per week that are giving you a spike week above replacement. And it's sort of true no matter sort of which one of these tiers we're talking about. For instance, if you look at the major spike week tier here, this is what this data is essentially saying, that on an average week, there'll be 2 quarterbacks that give you, a major spike, basically above 30 points. There'll be also 2 running backs and wide receivers that'll give you a major spike, above 27 points. And tight ends do slightly or kind of significantly worse there. So that's just like looking at total spike weeks, but this is actually not entirely fair to the quarterback position, because if you consider, your average underdog draft, there's only going to be like 45-ish quarterbacks taken, but there's going to be 70 running backs taken, 90 wide receivers taken. So if you adjust that for the number of like players that are actually taken at these positions, all of a sudden you see that quarterbacks have a better chance of delivering a spike week than running back and wide receivers across all the point thresholds. And this is true if I checked in like sort of filtering out guys that would likely be undrafted in a given year. And it doesn't really change the story a lot. And in fact, it actually just hurts like running backs and wide receivers more than quarterbacks. So essentially, like the argument here is that like there's quarterback scarcity. There's only like 45 quarterbacks out there that are going to deliver you spike weeks compared to like, 70 running backs, 90 wide receivers, whatever it might be. So even though there's sort of equal number of spike weeks at the position, once you adjust for the fact that there's way fewer quarterbacks, each individual quarterback bet, sort of in a vacuum, gives you a much higher chance of getting a spike week than at running back or wide receiver. And then the final piece I'll lay out here, and sorry for ranting this long, but I then looked at, how predictive are these spike weeks across positions at quarterback versus running back versus wide receiver. And what we see is that just the top 24 quarterbacks by positional ADP just make up a massive share of the spike weeks, like no matter how you look at it. Like sort of one way to sort of think about it is, the top 24 quarterbacks essentially make up 90% of the spike weeks at the position. Whereas the top 24 running backs are only making up like 60 to 70% of the spike weeks. The top 24 wide receivers are only really making up like 50 to 60-ish% of the spike weeks, depending on how you look at it. So the top 24 quarterbacks, like if you're not getting a couple of those guys, it's an extremely, extremely thin bet to get spike weeks at the position. Like look at the major spikes tier, quarterback 3s and above over the past 9 years. Only like 10% of the spike weeks are coming from, the sort of later round quarterbacks. So I just strongly think that it's a much easier parlay to hit to get a couple of the top 24 quarterbacks. And then it's much easier to get spike weeks at running back and wide receiver later than it is to do the opposite approach. And I'm not saying you should take quarterbacks with like each of your first 3 picks. I still think, rounds 2 and 3, I'm totally fine with taking stabs on really elite skill position players. I'm just saying like 3 of your sort of first 6 round picks in Superflex, that's sort of how it works out in this format. I think like I really strongly feel that if you're not taking 3 quarterbacks there, you're sacrificing a ton of upside and also sacrificing a lot of sort of advance rate stuff in the regular season, just based on sort of the distributions of how scoring works. So that's my argument. Pat, I'll give you a chance first. I think you also potentially had some charts you wanted to show here, but what are your thoughts on this argument?
I wanted to, if you can share my screen, I brought up my, this is a 1 quarterback article that I had last year. So this just showed percentage of half-point PPR spike weeks at the quarterback position by round. This was back when we hadn't lost our minds, so there was only quarterbacks being drafted rounds 3 through 5, not round 2. But you're seeing that, okay, we're getting most of our spike weeks actually from rounds 6 through 9. But most of the quarterbacks are not drafted in rounds 3 through 5. Only 9% of the quarterbacks are drafted in rounds 3 through 5. They're producing 21.4% of the spike weeks even still. So combining those 2 numbers to look at, okay, accounting for how many quarterbacks being drafted in each round, where are we getting the tournament winning power? Where are we getting these huge spike weeks that we need? And it's rounds 3 through 5 that's actually generating over half of them. And if you look around 6 through 9, now we're up to 89% of the tournament winning power at the quarterback position is coming from these really early quarterbacks. Now, I kind of wish I had done this rounds 3 through 6. If I redid this, I might do a 3 through 6 because that's where we tend to get. I did that. The reason I did 3 through 5 and 6 through 9 is because I was consistent across all the positions that way. But we know at quarterback, generally, there's been like Jalen Hurts was kind of a 6th round. There's usually like that 6 through 7 round pocket. But when I look at your analysis, what jumped out to me is like, I'd love to know how many of those really amazing QB1 spike weeks are coming from the top 5 to 6 quarterbacks who are off the board in every single draft with the top 5 to 6 picks, because I have no issue taking one of those guys I would never pass on one of those guys. You know, I'm not taking Justin Jefferson over Patrick Mahomes or Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen. I've taken, Joe Burrow. I'll take Joe Burrow ahead of him. So, you know, with that, I'm like, sure. You know, if we're going to pass on one of those quarterbacks who not only gives us a ton of stability at this position where we're starting two guys, but also gives us historically really strong chances at hitting those spike weeks, I'm in. I have a harder time when it comes around and it's now Cooper Kupp versus Kirk Cousins, because it's like, Kirk Cousins has typically been more in this bucket, this around 10 to 13 bucket, where his spike week chances aren't that great. And Cooper Kupp's spike week chances are off the charts. You know, now if you're looking at the 2-3 turn and I've got the chance to take like a Bijan Robinson or Jonathan Taylor, or sorry, I mean the 1-2 turn. Now we're coming back around. Maybe we're in the 203 range. Bijan's still sitting there. I've got other wide receivers, you know, that are going to be there. I've got some really strong bets at the skill position players. And I think those bets are much, much stronger for spike weeks than the quarterbacks in those ranges. I don't have a problem if like you want to go in like round 4 and 5 or round 5 and 6 and grab 2 more quarterbacks and build your 3 quarterback structure that way. I think that's totally fine. I've tended to do more grab one of those guys and then push it. And kind of like at running back, be like, look, not all these teams are going to work out, but what can I find later in the draft that you can, I'm done sharing if you want to pull this off. There's nothing else.
Okay.
But what can I find later in the draft that you can't find? Because what I can do at quarterback is I can hit a home run, right? I can get it. If Jacoby Brissett's a starter for 80% of the season.
That's my entire argument is that I think all this base rate data is fine, but I don't give a shit about hitting a bunch of doubles. I don't care about having a 27% advance rate. If it
feels like a cash game strategy to me.
But you guys are acting like you can't make that. You can make that same argument at wide receiver, but like the odds of getting a spike week wide receiver are higher. Like that's
you can't.
You can't.
You're talking about a single spike week. I'm talking about having
a 220 point score that you got in the last round. You get where's Geno Smith going in these last
quarterbacks that were drafted, like, you know, quarterbacks 36, but okay, that's fair. That's one though, right?
No, but it's one. But if you think about this,
there's only 32 teams. Like, it's not like we're out there like hunting. Like, oh god, like there's 32 teams. We're looking at.
Well, okay, and I think it would be different too if we were doing this in August and we had more certainty about who the starting quarterbacks would be. I
want less certainty. I want less certainty.
Yeah, the way the drafts we're doing right now, this is actually perfect to be hitting all this uncertainty. We don't even know. We don't know what team Levis is going to be on. We don't know how healthy Brock Purdy's going to be.
Levis is going to start games at the end of the season. He's going to be a top 10 NFL pick, and he's going like the 9th round.
I like Levis, and I'm not saying that like I'm never taking these later quarterbacks, but like you guys are saying basically like you can do something that historically has like extremely low odds of success.
No.
Like
that's not what
identifying.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm gonna say. Well, one is I'm saying there's a potential that I can do that, and then you're fucked. But there's also a potential that I am beating you silly at the other positions. I have one quarterback who's helping me fill spike week, so I'm not falling behind. And what I'm doing at the quarterback 2 position is I'm treading water. Because look, this isn't a race to score the most points at quarterback. This is a race to put up the most points overall. I don't need to have the best quarterbacks to have the best team if my team is crushing at the other positions. So I've got this incredible firepower at wide receiver and running back. I can make up enough points there through huge spike weeks at those positions that other drafters don't have access to. And then, like I can backfill with a Mac Jones or a Will Levis coming into the back of the year. I can layer that room with some guys who I think might start a little early and some guys like Will Levis who I think will be starting by the end of the season. I can put it together like a 0 running back type of room where I'm like, not all of these guys are great bets. Taylor Heinecke is for free at the end of drafts. Could Taylor Heinecke be starting at the end of the year? Yes. And it's dude,
what's Taylor Heineke's upside if he's starting at the end of the year?
He helps me fill the Superflex position.
I guess the
point I just need to stick with you enough so that my Cooper Kupp is able to smash your yeah, great. You had a good week from Justin
Taylor
Herbert.
Heinecke could score 18 points. 18 points in week 17 or 18 fantasy points per game for 3 weeks. And that is dominating the team that took Jalen Hurts in the first round.
But you also, dominating. If Taylor Heinecke is your quarterback too, and I have, Patrick Mahomes, Matt Stafford, and CJ Stroud, like
one of those guys is sitting on your bench as well.
Yeah, but you have to win. You have to win like basically 4 consecutive turns. You think like this would be equivalent to the argument that you should just draft one quarterback in one quarterback leagues and just like pray that guy hits your starting lineup all 3 weeks.
I'm not saying to draft Joe Burrow and Taylor Heinecke and call it a day.
Yeah.
I'm saying I'm taking like, so the chart, one of the charts you showed early on is that we should be drafting about 4 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
That I don't have an issue with.
That's what Kerrane. So Kerrane and I think are aligned. We're saying one really good quarterback, one guy who you think could be better than like 23 points per game. And then you take Baker, Brissett, Mike White, Sam Darnold.
Gardner
go down
Minshew.
Go down the list.
Like, look at this data. Like, you can say, like, I get today, it makes sense that, like, we think we can identify like which one of those guys are going to be starting week 16. And sure, you take 3 of them.
You're not looking at the opportunity cost with this data though, Sam. Like, I'm not, and also like we're not saying, dude, if you just draft Mike White, you're going to get some 6 spike weeks at the quarterback.
You're going to draft. You're going to draft 70 dead teams out of 150 doing it this way. But I think you have a much better chance of hitting.
I don't want to draft
that
many
team.
I'm skeptical, but also like, okay.
I'm going to draft a bunch of dead teams anyways. Sort of my.
I'm skeptical, like,
but it's April.
With like Leone's stuff about like the importance of having live players, I think just like, and the importance of advance rate, that its implication on your finals advance rate, like having good advance rates helps a lot with your finals advance rate. So I'd say that first. 2, let me like establish where I think like we agree more than we disagree. Pat, I'm with you that like if I take one of the elite quarterbacks in the first round, I agree that, Cooper Kupp versus Daniel Jones, I want Kupp. Like Tyreek Hill versus Dak Prescott or whatever, I want Tyreek Hill. That's second and third round, even like third round. Tony Pollard versus Jared Goff, I want Tony Pollard. I think the mistake is once you get to that like 4th, 5th, 6th round, if you're taking like Jerry Jeudy over CJ Stroud, or you're taking Mike Williams over, Bryce Young, I think that's a massive mistake because, hey, I'm going to be taking CJ Stroud and Bryce Young.
I think I agree with you on this.
Yeah, I'm going to be hammering.
You want one of those guys.
Yeah.
I think you want one of those guys.
No, I think you want both because I'm going to be taking those guys. And then when other people are taking, Baker Mayfield at pick 100, I'm taking Brandon Cooks and Rashad Bateman. When you're taking
you're losing if you're not getting Baker. Let me tell you.
I'm just saying like those the 2 I choose of the quarterbacks that you're taking at picks like 100, 150. Sure, like some of them will hit, but like there's still plenty of wide receivers and running backs in that range that are like, because they're all pushed back by the quarterbacks. Like you're getting Bateman, Brandon Cooks, Zach Charbonnet, Joe Mixon, whatever, James Conner. You're getting like really good bets to contribute at the running back and wide receiver position. Whereas like the quarterbacks that you're taking there are just such high odds. Like, believe this data or don't, but like the quarterbacks you're taking at like QB 30 by ADP are like such high odds to be zeros. Whereas like the running backs.
Here's what you're looking at quarterback ADP that is not Superflex though, right?
I mean, yeah, but would it matter positionally?
So, yeah, I think it does matter because what you see in the quarterback ADP in the Superflex drafts is that Kenny Pickett goes ahead of Anthony Richardson and Trey Lance. Maybe not Richardson anymore, but he goes ahead of Trey Lance in these drafts.
Yeah, the guys with more safety are going
because he has more safety.
The Trey Lance capitulation is it's finalized. People are.
But this is the format to draft Trey Lance.
Yeah,
this is actually where you should be drafting Trey Lance.
I'm drafting Trey Lance.
And look, I mean, when you take CJ Stroud there, and you're like, look, I got CJ Stroud. Like, good luck finding your quarterback production late. What have you actually gotten in CJ Stroud? because none of us think that CJ Stroud is going to do a ton on a points per game basis.
Yeah, he'll be like he'll be Taylor Heinecke. He'll be Taylor Heinecke.
You got safety. What do I get when I get Mac Jones? I get the exact same guy who's probably actually a better bet on a point per game basis if he's starting. So I've taken on more risk, but I actually have the better points per game bet if he hits. So I have the same with Ryan Tannehill. So
Mac Jones actually is a better bet than CJ Stroud.
If Stroud is a Texan,
why?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
he's a pocket passer. He's a rookie pocket passer.
But
on
Mac
a bad
Jones
team.
is like a third-year pocket passer on a bad team that hasn't shown.
He's a third-year pocket passer versus a rookie pocket passer.
I mean, comparing Stroud's athleticism to Mac Jones is also, I don't think.
Yeah, but
Stroud, you've got outs. You've got outs to Stroud running. You know, Mac has absolutely no rushing outs. You could see Stroud doing, what did Burrow have last year? 400 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns, something like that.
Yeah,
he could
be
do that.
Tannehill maybe.
But is it worth the extra risk? So let me look at Mac Jones' ADP. His ADP is, what is it,
like
90, 95 right now. Is it worth all that extra risk for the difference between Jerry Jeudy and, let's see, a wide receiver going in that range, like Chris Godwin or George Pickett? Like, you're taking on all that extra risk, and what are you winning? Like, I don't even know straight up if Godwin, like Marquise Brown, you know, George Pickens, are they really worse bets than Jerry Jeudy?
Well, stop saying Jerry Jeudy, who I've not taken at all.
Yeah,
Judy's
gross. Give us a name we like.
Yeah, but please give us another option.
Like Jerry Jeudy, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, you know, Christian Watson. Like I just think that tier of wide receiver
seems like I do have more upside if I'm getting some Christian Watson in my life. Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, I think you're like the different. Is there really that big of a difference between that tier of wide receivers and the tier of like, man, Chris Godwin, Marquise Brown, George Pickens, Mike Evans.
Hey man, if you're touting Chris Godwin and not Baker Mayfield, you got some stuff to figure out. Okay.
I'm just saying, I think like the QB scarcity, like the drop off, like you can't, like, once the quarterback.
I'm making the point that the scarcity that you're talking about is safety scarcity. It's not upside scarcity. And that's where I'd say, like, you should probably redo this analysis with the quarterback ones, or at least I would really like you to, because I think it'd be interesting to show us lop off like the top 7 picks. Lop it off after Lamar.
I can
after
do that.
Lamar, like, you know, that type of range.
I can do that. So top 6 picks if you're interested, instead of top 12. So if you're looking at the middle chart here, like
the
major spike week. So QB1s 1 through 12 are 63% of the spike weeks. If you do 1 through 6 instead, that gets you. So that's originally it was 145 spike weeks for 1 through 12, and it's 98 spike weeks in 1 through 6. So you're right that it's a big portion. So it's 65% of that 63% are cute quarterbacks 1 through 6. So you're right that obviously, like, I think you're frankly just like structurally at a disadvantage when you go into these Superflex rooms and you get a back half pick. Like, that's happened.
You're at a massive disadvantage. It's actually kind of unfair. Like, it's a problem really with the format.
Yeah.
It's
but
unfair.
Still, like, it's not like it's 65% of that number. So, what's that quick math?
But okay. So let's operate. Let's think about that though. Okay. You have the 12th pick. I don't think anyone who's done one of these drafts would argue that you're not at a massive disadvantage.
Yeah.
Relative to the guys with the early picks.
100%.
So as a drafter now with a massive disadvantage, your odds of winning this tournament are much lower. Your odds of even advancing are much lower. What do you do with that information? Because I think if you just sit there and you get your 3 quarterbacks in the first 6 rounds, you're basically like capitulating. Like, play to win. You know what I mean? You're a huge dog. So why not try to hit on 2 late quarterbacks and push it a little bit and get, because dude, your chances of advancing that team are already super low anyway. So why not actually try to hit home runs? And I do think you can hit home runs at the quarterback position in the sense of I'm filling this position with points regularly, not spike weeks. I'm not saying you're going to like find, some crazy rushing quarterback that no one's ever heard of. That's not going to happen. But what you do have the chance to is just not get totally crushed at the quarterback position while you crush with the best skill player room in that particular week.
I see the argument, but like I still think you can make the same argument the other way around, and it's more convincing that you get the quarterbacks early and you can make up for it with wide receivers and running backs later. Like historically, there's just higher
from the 12
odds.
spot. You think that from the 12 hole?
So if I'm in the 12 hole, I'm probably taking one quarterback and one skill position player. Like, man, I don't know. Tua,
it gets
like,
tough though, man. You're going to be doing what I'm doing, whether you want to or not. Because by the time it comes back to the 3-4 turn, the quarterbacks are gone again.
Yeah,
it's a disaster.
It's actually just such a disaster picking there because not only do you not get a chance at the elites, but actually, like, you can often get boxed out of like the rookie because the guys at like the 5-6 turn also can box you out.
Also,
so, like,
go.
It really should be third round reversal. But I don't know. I just don't. I agree. I don't think that like.
That's why. I mean, that's literally why you should be taking Jacoby Brissett and Taylor Heinecke and these guys because you're drawing so thin to bank anyway. You gotta just take on the risk.
I think you should be taking those guys, but I think you should be taking 4 QBs and 3 top 24 plus add your favorite guys later. Like
that's what we're saying.
Well, I'm saying basically take 2 top 24 and I mean it's actually a pretty subtle difference. I'm saying like take 2 of the top 24 and then go hunt around and find some other guys. And take 3 if you want. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm gonna lean 3 just because I think like again and I made this point in chat, like if best ball were purely like a DFS 1 week slate and I was doing like a weekly team where I was drafting for the highest single week upside in 1 week, Pat, I'd be 100% with you that I would not take 3 quarterbacks in the first 6 rounds. Well,
Sam, guess what? You are. This is what this tournament is.
No, but let me finish. Let me finish my tournament. Dude, it's not quite though because you have to win. Like you're saying with your strategy that you have to have your 2 quarterbacks score for you every single week, like in 3 consecutive weeks. And with the way like pocket passer scoring works, like it's very variable week to week. And I think having 3 guys, like, I mean, it's just the same thing of like what, like I'd rather have 2 good quarterbacks going into a 1 quarterback playoffs than just having one. Like if I just have Jalen Hurts healthy and no one else, like the odds of me winning like 3 consecutive tournaments are super low because even if he smashes all 3 weeks, there's a ton of Jalen Hurts teams that are going to be there because he smashed all 3 weeks. Like, I just think you kind of need, like, at all positions, you need multiple contributors at all positions. Like,
let's dial in on what we're actually talking about because what we could be talking about here is we have the exact same quarterback 1. So let's say we both have Joe Burrow as our quarterback 1. What you're doing in your second round, it sounds like, you're taking more of like, the Kirk Cousins type.
No, sorry. I want to be clear that I think we're aligned that in the second round.
Oh, sorry. So you don't have that guy. You've got Stroud and you've got Bryce Young.
So what I'm doing is I'm taking in the first 2 rounds, I'm taking 1 quarterback. Generally, I'm double tapping like sometimes, but that's not my base build. Like usually first 2 rounds, I'm taking 1 quarterback. Then rounds 4 through 6, I want 2. I want Trey Lance and Matt Stafford. I want CJ Stroud and Kenny Pickett. I want 2 of those guys because I feel like the drop off after that is so huge that it's just worth getting them. And you can still get tons of good wide receivers and running backs from like rounds 6 through 12 or whatever. That's the strategy I'm advocating for.
Yeah. And I mean, Lance and Stafford, I think are very good picks, but like the Picketts of the world, what I guess I'm saying is like, if you're going into these tournament weeks and we both have the same quarterback 1 and you have Kenny Pickett and CJ Stroud, and I have Mac Jones, who's starting, and Jacoby Brissett, who's starting.
What's the difference?
The difference is I have the better quarterback room, not you. And like, guess what? I have a better skill position room too. So I'm setting myself up better for the tournament weeks if I'm taking on more risk to get there. But
so I don't think I necessarily agree with Pat's thought there. What I think
you like Pickett over Brissett if he starts.
I just think
like the if he starts thing is doing so much of the work. Like, sure, if you could identify the late round guys that are going to start, like that's just doing. Well,
Sam Howell's getting benched. I'm pretty confident.
But Sam, to my point is what you just said, which is I think that the edge that exists right now in this tournament is getting more skill position players and taking stabs, right? Tyler Huntley, Mike White, Sam Darnold, who the fuck ever. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, Sam Darnold is another one.
Yeah, I mean, look, we love, this is a pro Sam Darnold program, right? I mean, just the idea, I think, is you are like, just imagine if you had drafted 50% of Geno Smith with like in the 13th round last year in the Superflex tournament, you would have been like a huge favorite to advance. Like, yeah, it only happens
to advance. To advance. That's the key thing. Yeah, not just to, because I think that's the other part of it is like, yes,
if you advance 50 teams or whatever, or 30 teams, like you're just are feeling so good about making money.
And I don't disagree that that's massive leverage, but I'm just saying, like, the anecdotal examples at running back and wide receiver, like you could say, imagine if you took 50% James Robinson in 2020. Imagine if you took,
but it's more streamlined. It's more streamlined at quarterback because they're not
There's only
competing with other
guys who it could be from. First of all,
they're not competing with other guys on their offense. Like, sure, James Robinson wins the job for the Jaguars, but he stinks, so he doesn't get enough points. Like, it's just like quarterbacks who stink. What is their floor? Like 14 fantasy points per game for like the worst guy who starts all season. You know, it's like, it's
12.
Yeah, I mean, so you're just a huge win.
The other thing is that if you think these wins do exist, and I do, I mean, if you just look at like Desmond Ridder is a starting NFL quarterback, you know, like there's lots of guys who are like, that's not going to work for a whole season, you know? So I do think these wins exist out there. There's also quarterbacks like, you know, Tannehill and stuff. Like Tannehill could go destroy Ridder's season, you know, if he gets traded if they trade up for a quarterback and then trade Tannehill or something. There's lots of ways that I think some of these more talented quarterbacks can get out there on the field. But if you push quarterback 3, what you set yourself up to do is actually benefit in a huge way if you do hit on one of those guys. Because if you tack on a Heinecke to a 3 quarterback build within the first top 6, right? Like your Pickett, Stroud, and your Burrow, and then you have Heinecke. And if Heineke's starting for a big part of the season, that helps you a little. It doesn't help you a lot. If you have Heinecke as part of maybe even a 5 quarterback build with 2 early, 3 late, the fact that he's out there helps you a ton. He's actually boosted your advance rates considerably if you're able to hit on that too. So I think there's like additional, by pushing it, you're more risky with that super flex spot, but you're also gaining more if you do hit, and you're gaining more not just on a weekly basis, but from an advance rate perspective. So when you win, you win basically.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Like if you identify, I'll say a couple things. If you are able to identify the later round guys that do start, I agree that like if Ryan Tannehill starts, there's no difference between him and CJ Stroud. Maybe even he's like slightly higher upside. Sure,
that's all we're saying. And
I'm saying like the if is just doing like so much of the work.
But is it that big of an if that Ryan Tannehill starts this year? He's starting.
No, it's not. But like the combinatorics,
I feel like it's a pretty big if.
The combinatorics
that he starts at all. I don't think so.
Like you guys have to get so much right in best ball to have a good team. Like you could nail the late round quarterbacks that do well.
What's the number one thing you have to get right in this format? What would be, if you could choose one thing to get right about, it would be getting a starting quarterback after pick.
I'm saying that gives you a ton of leverage, but the odds of hitting all those quarterbacks that you get right and the skill position players that you took in rounds 2 through 5, just not like tearing their ACL or getting injured. Like I'm just saying, like you can be right about that and it doesn't pay off. Like you can, a lot of shit can go wrong.
Well, I mean, that's basically best ball anyways. It's like 90% of us are going to lose. Like 90% of us not going to win.
You're way more likely to get quarterback right by like and what I will grant you is like this data. And I think this is an important distinction that is a fair pushback. Like this data is going to be end of the season ADP. So this is likely already when, the starters are announced, who's exactly who's going to start. So it's a little softer in that sense. So I do get your argument to some extent that, hey, you can identify, Ryan Tannehill at quarterback 30 now because there's uncertainty about him starting. Whereas like in this ADP, like if he did end up starting to start the year, he would be like a quarterback 2. So like I kind of get that.
Round, yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
I kind of earlier. I get that part of it, but I'm just saying that like you can tell yourself the story. Hey, if I hit on the right quarterbacks,
I think you're telling yourself more of a story than you think, because those quarterbacks that you're saying, like in the optimal build, those are quarterback 3s. those like those guys aren't those. You're in the 9% bucket when you take a CJ Stroud and a Kenny Pickett.
No, they're quarterback twos by ADP. Stroud, Bryce
by
Young.
one quarterback ADP.
Yeah,
because they're going. Okay, I guess there's just not that many jobs. Those are, in my opinion, by the end of the summer, like Kenny Pickett. Once we know where everyone's starting, like you're taking him as quarterback 23, or are you taking him as quarterback 26 or 27? Like there's not really that much upside there. The reason he's going in the top 24, I think, is because we know for a fact he's the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But in terms of the spike week profile, he showed nothing last year, So I just think you're telling yourself more of a story with a CJ Stroud and with a Kenny Pickett in terms of what they can do for you in a single week tournament than it may feel like you're doing. You're getting a lot more safety for sure, but I just think that the upside actually isn't really there. I think they belong in this 9% major spike week bucket, not the 26% once you get down into that range. It's a rookie and a second year guy showed nothing as a rookie.
Upside has to factor in their odds of starting weeks 15 through 17. Like if there's two players who are identical and one has 100% odds of starting weeks 15 through 17 and one has 50% odds of starting weeks 15 through 17, that player inherently has a lot more upside.
Sure. Yes. I'm saying if they are starting though, they have the profile of a guy who gets drafted in the later rounds of a one quarterback league. They're not the type. They're not like in the Daniel Jones zone last year where you're like, well, he can run. Yeah. I'm not sure what he's going to do for me, but I know he can run. Pickett doesn't even give you that. He's a pocket passer who.
It's just devastating to your teams, and like even in one quarterback, like when Derek Carr got benched down the stretch last year, if you had a two quarterback team with Derek Carr and he gets benched down the stretch, that's just like devastating for your chances.
Isn't that literally an argument for the opposite strategy of just saying you should just be nabbing some backups because we feel so much more confident in our ability to project who's starting 17 games? Like who are the guys who are literally there is no circumstance in which they're not starting 17 games. We got Allen, Mahomes, Hurts. I would not include Justin Fields. I think there are scenarios where Justin Fields gets benched for performance-related reasons. Burrow, Herbert, not Lamar, Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, Tua, but Tua could be out of football very quickly. Daniel Jones probably this year just because they paid them.
He's not going to get benched.
Goff.
Aaron Rodgers, I would say.
Cousins could get benched.
Goff could get benched. Gino
Aaron Rodgers doesn't currently play for an NFL team.
So Russ could get benched. Carr could get benched. Kyler Murray might not even play. Jordan Love might just stay.
Yeah, if you're not taking Jarrett Stidham in these leagues, like you're not thinking hard enough.
Right.
But Stafford, I'm just saying,
Love, Young, Richards. Dude, this is
you can
the
say
more
this,
I'm looking at this, the more I'm convinced.
The more you can say this, but like the market is so good at identifying which quarterbacks are going to give you spike weeks. Like just look at this.
But you're using the wrong ADP for this. Like they're so
it's not
good,
gonna be
but they're not.
It's not going to be that different.
Yes, it is, dude. Like
no,
Kenny Pickett does not fit the archetype that you're describing. You're saying, look at he gives me a 26% chance. No, he doesn't, dude. That's not the Kenny Pickett archetype. Kenny Pickett is like the end of August, like round 16, round 17 type guy. He's not going 13th round. No one's taking Kenny Pickett in the 13th round in August.
And one quarterback?
Yeah. He's not a spike week producer.
Take Kenny Pickett out of it, like the other examples, Matt Stafford, Bryce Young,
CJ Stroud. I feel the exact same way about CJ Stroud. Bryce Young, I like Bryce Young a lot more than CJ Stroud.
Okay, well then if you're saying all the quarterback twos suck, then you're gonna say that you're like the market historically has only been able to find like 10% of the spike weeks at quarterback 3 or later, and you're just saying that like you're gonna be able to do that at a way better.
I'm saying
rate
you think you found spike weeks and you didn't. And I think I didn't find spike weeks, and I also
spike weeks at quarterback again. Spike weeks at like quarterback it's like in Superflex, it's not as high of a bar as in one quarterback leagues. Like Kenny Pickett, 250 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's not going to do that a lot. I think he's going to do it a couple.
But I can replace that later. I
mean,
Mac Jones.
The data says you can't really.
He's the exact same bet. He's
got a much I don't know. I don't know what to believe about the Mac Jones Zappy stuff, but I think you at least have to acknowledge there's a higher chance of Mac Jones not starting down the stretch.
Of course there is.
Pickett.
That's why I get a discount. If Mac Jones was going next to Kenny Pickett, I'd take Kenny Pickett.
The discount is the difference between Jerry Jeudy to Chris Godwin.
Well, I don't.
Is that worth the risk?
I can take Christian Watson, who has a much higher weekly ceiling, given that he's not. Well, I guess he has.
Still Christian Watson to Chris Godwin, like I don't know, man. Like that is a difference. I want Watson, but like, is it worth the extra risk? I don't know. I don't think we're gonna agree. This is a fun debate.
Live a little, Sam.
I am living a little, and it's having 3 quarterbacks that I know are going to be starting in the playoffs when I need them to all go off in weeks 15 through 17.
Take 2 and then live a little. Find something that you can't find later.
Yeah, I'm team live a little, especially because this far out from the NFL or from the actual season, our accuracy and our ability to like just project is going to be worse than it is going to be in August. So yeah, I'm team live a little.
Dude, I like, and like this might come off as like, oh, I hate Tannehill. I hate taking Levis. I don't.
I do hate Tannehill. I don't think Tannehill's going to play.
Fair enough. But I don't hate taking that tier of guy. I'm just saying that like having 4 again, you need to like, I think to take down these tournaments, you need to have like 2 quarterbacks scoring consistently in your lineup. Like, why would we not want 4 quarterbacks? Like when they give us 20 roster spots. Like you can find guys at other positions.
I agree with that. I mean, you're talking to 2 guys who love taking the late quarterbacks. So,
but I'm saying like you could take the 3 and still take these guys. And again, I don't think your strategy, Pat, is horrible, or like what you're saying is horrible. Like doing 1 elite, 1 5th or 6th round guy or whatever, and then tacking on 2, 3 like super late guys. I'm not saying that's like an unviable or like terrible strategy. I just think that like. Based on my analysis, I think I'm getting higher upside and safety. Not the absolute, not the absolute nut upside.
Yeah,
like, I
that's the part that I think you're kind of like double counting your safety because you're like my upside is that he's likelier to start. I'm like, yeah,
but dude, that is you like you can't.
Yeah, but then
dismiss that as upside.
You're not allowed to go and I have higher safety because you put your safety into the upside equation to get the higher upside up.
But I think they're similar. I mean. I just think like you don't need to hit the absolute nut outcome of nailing this year's Geno. Like, dude, like look at the teams that win Best Ball Mania. Like they're not these like absolute nut outcome. You hit every single league
because it's just
teams.
Fucking. I mean, the other.
I just think you need to have a team that's going to be scoring points when you get to the playoffs, and then the randomness is going to shake out. And I like my odds of having a team that's got like good 95 percentile outcomes. Maybe not 100 percentile outcomes, but like really strong, 95 to 98 percentile outcomes, like when the playoffs roll around.
To me, like it's like, what can you get in this part of the draft that you can't get later in the draft? And if I show up and Kenny Pickett's there, and look, I've taken Kenny Pickett. I'm not saying I'm not taking Kenny Pickett because I don't like to just completely push it. You will get locked out at quarterback. And if you locked out at quarterback, you might as well stop drafting and go do something else because you're not going to win. But if you are sitting there and you've already got 2 quarterbacks and you're looking at Kenny Pickett, you're like, what can I get here that I can't get later? Well, one thing that you can get here is to be very, very strong at a skill position player. And yeah, maybe that particular guy, like, oh, Jerry Jeudy for this guy, but like you're building a room of firepower that is going to be superior to the other teams that you're going up against in these single week tournaments. If you're, prioritizing that position. What can you get later in the draft at quarterback? In my view, you can get the exact same weekly type of bet as Kenny Pickett if that player is starting. And the further you go into the draft, the less likely that player is starting the entire season. But like, I don't know, Will Levis seems more fun to me than Kenny Pickett. And I feel just as confident that he's starting by the end of the year.
I mean, what if Will Levis is Pickett?
Levis is one of the best picks in the form, and I'm not disagreeing with that by any means.
So just star Levis and skip Pickett, and yeah, maybe you didn't get that.
The thing
much
is, I'm fine with Levis as
the wide receiver 1v1, but I think you get something.
The thing is, I'm fine with just like having Levis in my back pocket as a 4th. I think you should be taking 4 quarterbacks in these, and like. Again, like Levis, like there's good individual bets. I'm not dismissing that, but like The 2x2 again. Like I've made this point 100 times. Like you take Jerry. I know you hate this too, but okay, let's say Christian Watson. You take
Stop
Christian
giving me
Watson.
Jerry Judy for fuck's sake.
You take Christian Watson and Baker Mayfield. I take CJ Stroud and Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks versus Baker Mayfield. One of those players has 100% odds of starting weeks 15 through 17 if he's healthy. One of those players has like 30% odds of starting.
I'm not actually on Baker Mayfield because I think he's bad.
You guys are gonna eat it.
I didn't want to. Davis and I are aligned, so I didn't want to admit that this whole time. But I'm actually not taking Baker Mayfield in particular. But sure.
Oh man, well that was fun. I love fucking screaming at the top of my lungs about best ball.
Hang on, no, I need to show you a team to tilt you. I need to show you a team. All right, here's a team. This is one of my favorite teams I've drafted.
Should I share your screen?
Yeah. All right.
I'm about to make some picks. Yeah, this is perfect.
You guys see? So Joe Burrow. Maybe I should just go back. Go back one. Yeah, here we go. Okay. Joe Burrow, Matthew Stafford, Will Levis, Taylor Heinecke. Boom, I'm done. I've got 2 starters. I've got a guy who's going to be starting by the end of the year, and I've got a guy who'll probably be starting by week 3 since Desmond Ridder is an atrocity. All right. Then I've got a nice little running back room. This is basically a 0 running back team, but I feel pretty strong. Took some rookie scratch-offs, and then plus Zach Charbonnet, who's a scratch-off plus. My wide receiver room is pretty good. Also, in these early weeks when I'm muddling around a little bit at quarterback, one of these wide receivers is probably slotting in per your chart, Sam. Sometimes the wide receiver fills a super flex, and that's okay. Just a couple weeks until Heinecke takes that job.
That can work.
Then I got my elite tight end and my correlation tight end, Tyler Higbee, who Davis talked me back on this show a couple weeks ago.
So sad.
I like this
team. I've been
team.
sending out dynasty offers for him.
All I'll say is enjoy CeeDee Lamb in the second round. I'll take Jimmy G and he'll outscore him. So
yeah, he will outscore him. But I've got Heinecke in the 20th round, so I'll be fine. I might have a starting quarter. So this I mean, Sam, you and I view running back a bit differently, so it doesn't surprise me because I view this as kind of similar to running back. As like if I can hit on a Taylor Heinecke in the 20th round, like that gives me a true home run. Like it won't be a closing line value type of win because he won't win the week 1 job, but like the equivalent of a closing line value type of thing where he would be a 6th round, 7th round pick and you're getting him in the 20th round. And that type of win doesn't really exist. Like you could, I guess maybe it exists, but it exists in such a larger pool of overall players that you got to go hunting around and find. Your odds of actually finding the correct guy are so much lower, where there's like 6 situations of which like that win could come from. Maybe we don't get any, but I think we probably get 1. So if I can find that type of home run and then I structure my team so that home run actually really, really helps me, then I think that's how you take down this tournament, which your odds of winning this tournament are very low. Your odds of even getting to the final round are very low. So I think, I think David Kitchen has a point. We should live a little.
I think it's playing a little fast and loose with the position. Like,
it is. I'm
you're
a little
only
fast
allocating,
and loose.
My original analysis said like if you just allocate draft capital proportional to starting spots, then you probably want like 4 to 5 quarterbacks. And again, we know why that's impossible to do in practice because there's only 32 starting quarterbacks in the league. That's not like a perfect analysis, but like, I don't know, man. Like I get it. And I'm taking 4 quarterbacks. I'm taking the Taylor Heineke's. I'm taking the Sam Darnolds, but I'm usually doing that in addition to just getting 3 guys that I feel really good about starting. And, I wish I'm going to try to steam Will Levis's ADP up into the 70s.
Don't steam it up.
Then
I'll have to go over to your side of this. Will Levis is one of the skeleton keys.
I'm sick of you using him as a crutch in this argument, so I'm trying to.
It's not a crutch. He's sitting right here on my team. But I will. Here's one thing I'll say. I like your strategy a lot more than taking quarterback, and then grabbing a quarterback in the 5th or something. I think that's where you like really put yourself at a disadvantage, and you put yourself in a situation where you might not even be able to use that Taylor Heinecke hit very much because like you've spent so much of the quarterback position that like Tua stays healthy and he's slotting into your lineup over Heinecke anyway. and so you're like not even benefiting from this massive hit that you got. So I don't have an issue with like the way you're building plus adding a late round quarterback. Like, I think it's probably fine. I just prefer to push it a little bit more with the odd, with the, like, I am going a little bit more risky, but it's a 260 team field and it's really tough to get there in the first place. So I'm probably going to need to hit a home run on this team somewhere. And one of the easiest places, I think, to sort of reliably hit a home run as we sit here in April is just target some of these uncertain quarterback rooms.
Yeah, you just want to capitalize on the uncertainty. That's all it is.
Sure, but I guess just like I think like comparing the number 1 and number 2 overall picks in the NFL draft and Bryce Young and CG Stroud to like Taylor Heinecke in terms of, sure, you can say like they're going into bad situations and you don't think they have a ton of upside in year 1, but like, sometimes these really good quarterback prospects just hit right away and do provide a lot of upside. We saw that with Burrow, his rookie year before he got hurt. Not like he was incredible, but like as a super flex pick, Burrow would have been awesome if he stayed healthy his rookie year. So I don't know. I'm just saying like, those guys have, if you hit on Taylor Heinecke or if you hit on, Jacoby Brissett, it's the same.
I didn't compare Heinecke directly to Stroud. I was comparing, who was I comparing? Mac Jones.
Mac Jones. I don't know, man. I'm a little skeptical of just saying Mac Jones and CJ Stroud are the same thing, but I see where you're going.
First round pick going into his 3rd year, and people forget he has an offensive coordinator this year.
He does have an offensive coordinator.
I'm not forgetting that.
Yeah. All right. We'll seemingly never
all right. That was ADP
agree.
chasing.
Yeah. All right. So risers, Abanikanda, OBJ. All right. Fallers, Pittman, Devonta Smith. Okay. All right. Let's start with Odell. That's
enough already with the Odell, dude. He's so dust. This man is dust incarnate. Enough. If people, it's really just that people are so wide receiver thirsty.
Well, if the Ravens like him, he must still be good.
One thing I do think is hilarious is Jarvis Landry is still technically a free agent. What odds would you make on the Ravens eventually signing Jarvis Landry and Odell and reuniting the 2013 LSU Tigers?
God, Jarvis Landry. I kind of think he has more left in the tank than Odell. Is that a crazy take?
No, I do too. I think Odell. I think if Odell had anything left in the tank, the Cowboys would have given him what he was asking for last year, because Jerry clearly wanted Odell. I don't remember what show I said this on. I think the Swolecast. Jerry clearly wanted him, and I think his son and Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore were like, please don't do this to us. Like, this is a huge distraction. He can't play. He can't move. Please, and he listened to them.
I'm not a big reality TV show guy, but I would love to watch a reality TV show, just the real footage.
Anything of Jerry Jones and his son talking about football. Mostly, I can't imagine.
And also, but I also want his son talking to other people about Jerry.
About Jerry.
That's mostly what I want.
Yeah, my dad just really won't leave this Odell thing alone. It's insane.
Like, God, I just don't know what we're gonna do. We gotta cut Zeke, and he just won't let us cut him. And it's like it shows under it's 2020.
Or the conversation of Mike McCarthy and Steven and Jerry sitting down explaining to Kellen Moore that him wanting to score points is actually a huge problem and they gotta let him go. They're like, we want to let you go.
It shows like a CeeDee Lamb touchdown, and it's Mike McCarthy.
God, no this. No, oh my God.
When Tony Pollard breaks off a long run, he's just so furious. It's like,
and the running back coach is like, God damn it, we should have had Malik Davis in there. Pollard's getting tired.
You see, bounce it outside for that touchdown.
So back to OBJ. I do want to talk this out a little bit. So let me give you a scenario, Davis. You drafted Lamar.
I'm closing my eyes.
Lamar, yeah. Close your eyes. Imagine the scenario. You drafted Lamar. You went sort of running back in the first 2 rounds and 1 quarterback. So you need to tack on some later round wide receivers. So you're looking at wide receivers in his range. Odell, a couple guys going in front of Odell. Jordan Addison, Quinton Johnson, Elijah Moore. They're all
easy.
Gone.
Yeah, easy.
So this scenario, they're all gone. So they're gone. The guys going after him: Zay Flowers, KJ Osborne, Juju, Jacoby, Sky Moore, Tyler Boyd, Darnell Mooney. So it's a little ugly after Odell.
Those are all guys. When I'm closing my eyes, I'm not retching thinking about taking them.
Okay, so that's the
correlation plays. Those are all your correlation plays. Plus, Zay Flowers is clearly better.
So you have Lamar on your roster. You're looking for a wide receiver. Those good rookie wide receivers are gone. You're choosing between Odell, KJ Osborne, Juju, Jacoby Myers, Sky Moore, Darnell Mooney.
I mean, I would just take him for correlation's sake. But what is Devin Duvernay's ADP? Like, what odds can I get? I mean, I'm stealing this bit from Pete, but like, what odds can I get that Devin Duvernay scores more fantasy points?
You're gonna be pretty bummed out by those Nelson Aguilar catches.
Oh my god, I forgot.
Pat, same scenario to you. You're taking Odell, right? Just for the stack correlation. No,
I don't think I'll have much Odell. Because look, man, I don't know if you've ever seen me draft, but I usually have 5 wide receivers by that point.
Okay, so but imagine you did, your tournament winning lineup. You took 2 running backs in the first 2 rounds. You hammered some running backs in the 9th and 10th.
Elite tight end.
You're in a pocket where you're looking for a wide receiver. Those are your options.
I think I took Jacoby Myers in this exact range. I think it took him in like the 11th round or something. So maybe would I take Odell instead of Jacoby Myers? No.
For the correlation? No?
I guess if I'm in a situation where we know for a fact that Lamar is there and, we got the Monken offense. Yeah, okay. I would take it for the correlation. If the Lamar situation has been completely resolved, everybody's psyched, everybody's happy, and we're like, there might be more passing. They finally got rid of what's his face. They're not going to be Greg Roman. They're not going to be running all the time. So, yeah, okay.
I did kind of forget. I did kind of forget this Monken thing. That really might end up working out for Odell. But I just think the issue is I just think he's so brittle. I think he seems like one of these guys who's honestly. Man, I can't believe I'm very Thielen-y to me. Like, he might run into some touchdowns.
Well, that's why Sam likes him.
Right.
That's why I love him, baby.
I mean, he might run into some touchdown spike weeks, but I just don't. I mean, we're talking about the last time we saw this dude play was in 2021.
Dude, okay, so let me give – I think I'm aligned with you guys, but just for devil's advocate's sake, let me give a little bit of the pro Odell case. And I'm totally with you. It's been 2 years since we've seen him play. He's 30 years old. Coming off major leg injuries, like all these arrows are pointing downward.
Am I wrong? Sorry, but he tore the same ACL, right? Like he tore his ACL in whichever knee it was, and then in that same knee, he tore that ACL again, right?
I think that's correct. I'm like 90%.
That's generally a pretty bad prognosis.
So that's bad.
Have him.
The injury stuff is bad. I will say, like, I think there has been a little bit of revisionist history about like, last time we saw Odell, he was washed. I think so. Here's last three games.
Well, he
played
was
in the
looking
playoffs.
good. He was looking good. Yeah, he was
looking really good. So last 3 games he played, divisional round versus Tampa Bay, 6 for 69 on 8 targets. NFC Conference Championship for San Francisco, 9 for 113 on 11 targets. Then Super Bowl versus the Bengals, 2 for 52 and 1 TD on 3 targets, but he only played 1.5 quarters in that game. He tore his ACL midway through the second. He was like a huge part of their Super Bowl game plan. He was balling. So last time we saw him, he was if you look at the wide receiver charting stuff, he was top 5 in ESPN open score in 2021. He was top 20 in Matthew Harmon's reception perception in terms of success rate versus man and success rate versus zone. So last time we saw him, I don't think you can say he was washed last time we saw him. You can say the injury stuff looks really bad. He took a full year off, but I'm still willing to say there's a glimmer of upside just in the fact that last time we saw him, he was balling. And the wide receivers that go after him, man, it's like a lot of slot guys that are just like pretty boring. So if he continues to rise, yes, I'm going to be like full fading him. But where he's going now, I'm willing to take him in Lamar stacks just because I think there is a glimmer of upside in his profile just based on what he was doing last time we saw him.
The thing I will say about him when we last saw him is that writing up the walkthrough at the time, it really jumped out to me that his usage had shifted from especially from peak Odell, and he was much more of kind of an underneath type of receiver than he'd previously been with the Rams. When he first joined the Rams, he had like this clear out deep threat, ADOT 22.7 in week 10, down to 11.8. ADOT bounces around a little bit, but he had 22.8 in week 13. By the end of the year, he had ADOTs of 9.5, 8.7, 12.6, 12.3. Not like, I'm not saying he's Amon-Ra St. Brown or something, but he definitely seemed like he was more of kind of like the underneath yards after catch type of profile, as opposed to like a downfield big play threat that he used to be. That's okay. Guys have like second phases to their career. I don't love it in a Lamar Jackson offense, especially like the Todd Monken stuff. Like maybe we get more passing volume, but like it would be a lot more exciting to me if he was with a more high volume passing offense. It's likely going to be about kind of more like West Coast style. Like that's where I think he would have really had a chance to rack up some serious fantasy points. Like Lamar tends to be more of these seam stretching routes from Andrews and like deep shots.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a perfect fit, not just because of the passing volume.
Totally with you. I think like in a vacuum, it's a really rough click for me, but in Lamar teams, I have been doing a decent bit of Lamar stacks. So I am considering him in Lamar stacks, but yeah, in a vacuum, it's not a great fit. A lot of things going against him. Let's talk Israel Abanikanda. He is just surging up draft boards. He was going in the 220s in one quarterback, I think, last time, or 2 weeks ago, and now he's 150 in Superflex. So really pretty massive rise now. He's going around running backs in that range, like Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert, Kenny Gainwell, Donta Foreman, Gibson, Eli Mitchell. That's sort of where he's going now. Pat, I'll send it to you first. Are you still buying Izzy at this new price?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
I'm taking him, so I can't say I'm not because I am clicking the button. I do think, you're getting now to a point where like there's more opportunity costs. It's more of kind of a risk reward type of bet. But you pointed out to me, Sam, that we are starting to see him move up boards in terms of the NFL's evaluation. This pro day does seem to have given him a little more juice in terms of his draft capital. If he's a third round pick, I think he's like a really exciting bet. Sean Siegel, I just had him on the Legendary Upside podcast. He has him ranked ahead of Zach Charbonnet in his rookie ranks. So, that gave me.
I mean, that's classic. That is just classic, Sean.
Isn't it? It's so delightful. So
here's the thing. It could be Abanikanda, it could be Charbonnet, it could be Deuce McBride, it could be whichever one of these guys gets drafted by the field.
Can I say this is the second time you said Deuce McBride, and are you just willing Deuce Vaughn to be bigger? Is that what you're doing?
No. I read your thread.
Dwayne
I read your thread.
Yeah, but his name's Dwayne.
Oh shit. Okay. Yeah. No, I'm just having. I'm having.
You're just mentally willing Deuce Vaughn.
I am. I'm living a little. I think there are 4 teams that immediately boost this guy that could boost him above Charbonnet, make him the running back 3, maybe even the running back 2 in the class. The Chiefs, the Bills, the Eagles, and the Bengals, because all of those teams, the Chiefs could
Dolphins maybe.
I would love the Dolphins
because they re-signed Mostert and Wilson, correct?
They did for like a couple million guaranteed each. So
I don't.
Those guys are old. Mostert's literally just old Izzy. It's We have to wait 6 weeks, but it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, my guess, and also I just don't think the Miami offense will be quite. I mean, there's just not on the same level. It's just not. It's not quite as. And so much more of their production goes to the 2 wide receiver guys, whereas there's actually a huge need in the Chiefs offense for a guy who's good. The Bengals, if the Bengals spend a second round pick on Abanikanda or Charbonnet or any of these guys, they're cutting Mixon. They're saving that money. And that guy is just the guy, right? The Bills,
whoever that is like a 5th round pick if that happens.
Yes, the Bills. I mean, it's maybe a little bit more gray there because they did sign Damian Harris. I mean, to me, James Cook looks like the 900th guy who weighs 192 pounds and was a pass catching specialist and then didn't end up playing in the NFL. I've drafted a million guys like that. I've cut a million guys like that in Dynasty. And then the Eagles don't really. Look, I know this is a pro Rashad Penny program. Yeah, they don't really have a proven solution on their roster, and they're the most run-heavy team in the league. Like,
we're gonna get one really good week, though. Don't forget.
Yeah, dude. Oh, totally.
Week 7 is gonna be awesome.
Yeah, Rashad Penny's gonna be on like the Raiders 3. Or something.
It'll be week 3. Yeah, I kind of I got a little optimistic there.
Like Gainwell will sprain his ankle or something in week 2, and he'll be out, and they'll just be like, "All right, Penny, it's your show." He'll have.
It'll be like the
carries.
CEH victory laps from last year that happened at week 3, and then for some reason stopped happening. I can't remember why. It'll be like, Penny, he was the guy. You had to have.
We should just start retweeting some of those CEH like week 5 victory laps.
It's not even week 5, dude. He was the running back 12 at week 8 of the 2022 NFL season, and then they just benched him. He didn't get hurt. He went down to 2 snaps a game, and then quote unquote got hurt, and we didn't see him again. He just disappeared.
Yeah,
don't be bad for 3 straight.
In my casual league, I remember one of my friends someone sent him a trade request that was like Mark Andrews for CEH, and he was like, dude, he was trying to rip me off. Like, why would I trade CEH for Mark Andrews? Like, he's going off. I love my friends, but this is a very casual 12-team league. They're not quite sickos like we are. So that was the perception around CEH though. He was scoring touchdowns. Like, if you're just a casual like box score fantasy guy, you would have thought you got a great pick
for sure. On Abanikanda, let me just say that don't get hyper focused on Abanikanda, because his profile, while it's my favorite of the guys past Charbonnet, it's not that different from a Kendre Miller or a Tank Bigsby or even a Roshan Johnson, who is like a slightly different style of bet, but is basically you're kind of hoping he gets a 3rd-round pick and takes over a backfield. He'd take it over in a slightly different way, but he would potentially take it over nonetheless. So, as Abanikanda continues to rise, potentially, those guys look even better, and Bigsby and Miller are just sitting there. They're just sitting there waiting for you in every draft. It's crazy. So, look, if the Bengals, they take Abanikanda and they cut Mixon, Abanikanda's a 5th-round pick. But if they take Tank Bigsby and cut Mixon, Tank Bigsby's a 5th-round pick. We're not going to, it's going to look very obvious to us that, Bigsby was the smash, depending on what these NFL teams decide to do. So I think you just want to have exposure to some of these other bets. I don't really like Zach Evans that much because he's not big enough. There's some of these guys that I find a little less appealing. But in general, I think you want to have exposure to pretty much all of these rookie running backs that are in a big tier. And then some of them I think are more priorities because they have the size to where they could legitimately be like 1A starters as rookies, particularly down the stretch.
Yeah. And I think, I've been trying to play the ADP game with these rookie running backs. Like when Abanikanda was cheap, I was taking him, though not as much as I should be. But now that Bigsby and Kendre are cheap, I'm taking them. I'm just kind of like, I'm taking all
Sean
of them.
Tucker's falling now. I haven't taken a ton of Sean
the
Tucker,
medical stuff with him is maybe tricky. But I agree. I have no problem with taking a stab on it. So I think those are all good calls. Let's talk Richie James, get a boots on the ground take in Kansas City from Davis. I still can't find the contract details on Richie James, which probably isn't a good sign for how much money he got. But anyways,
I'm gonna guess it's just a shade above the vet min with loads of incentives.
Yeah. So Davis, what are you doing now? Like the Chiefs wide receiver room is a huge mess outside of Kelsey at tight end.
Richie James is the only one of these dudes who's shown any ability to produce statistics in the NFL. So Richie James, that I'll never forget that Thursday night game. I got to go look up the exact statistics. Thursday night game for the 49ers. Dude has 9 receptions, 184 yards, and a touchdown. He was very productive, really high catch rate, just good and dependable for the Giants last year. I mean, he obviously, I don't think he's like a special player. I don't think he's going to come in a BTI kill or whatever, but I would guess he's probably better right now than Sky Moore, and he's going to be more dependable and available than Kadarius Toney, right?
Can I translate what you're saying real quick? I think what you're saying is that he's the Chiefs' Cole Beasley.
Yes. Oh, that's a great comp. Cole Beasley with maybe a little bit of extra gas. Little bit extra gas.
He's got some pretty good long speed, right? Doesn't James?
Yeah. Beasley was a catch and fall down guy. You know, James will stay afloat. I actually would probably view Richie James as very similar to how he was just used when they were teammates in New York, a insurance policy for Kadarius Toney, where Toney can only play 7 snaps. All right, Richie James is coming in and playing, and also an insurance policy if Sky gets to training camp and has added nothing, improved in no measurable way. Because I don't know if they can get by another year with playing Justin Watson, who championship, he was there, but he adds nothing. I mean, Justin
He's
Watson
a free agent,
adds,
right?
But that role, right? So just playing playing a wide receiver who doesn't do anything.
Well, this is a Justin Ross take now.
We got to stop with the Justin.
Didn't you see him? He's catching passes. He's training with Patrick Mahomes. He's on the team.
We got to stop, dude.
He's signed. Why do we have to stop?
I also saw some Amir Smith Marset hype with Mahomes training, and I'm like, dude, what are we doing? What's going on?
The problem with Justin Ross is that his body is just simply not capable. He can't.
That does seem like a problem.
He can't do it. I mean, the Chiefs probably have the worst wide receivers in the league of all 32 teams. They probably have the worst, and it just
crazy.
might not matter. You know, that's.
So you're saying Adam Thielen's better than Kadarius Toney? You guys are capitulating there.
This again, we're talking about weekly upside now. So.
Adam Thielen, if I were to have a guy for 17 games, I'd probably choose Adam Thielen. I think he'd be more dependable, but a guy for 1 game, I'd take Toney. I mean, Toney.
I'm kidding.
Toney was almost Super Bowl MVP. Toney was 4 yards away on a punt return from being Super Bowl MVP.
Toney was lining up in the right spot away from being Super Bowl MVP.
Shout out Sky Moore, first career touchdown in the Super Bowl. An amazing piece of trivia.
I think so. To summarize Richie James, I think he's at this price, I think he's a priority on any Mahomes team. Like, I think you got to, you're at pick 190 or whatever. I'm just reaching a little bit and just making sure I get Richie James. I don't know if it's going to work out, but it's tough on the Mahomes stacks. Like, if you don't get Kelsey, you're almost definitely not going to get Kelsey in Superflex. Like, you got to cobble together some kind of weird stack.
MVS is pretty easy.
I like MVS.
I like the cobble. I like the cobble together. You do a little Pacheco, you do a little bit of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you do a little bit of James, MVS, Sky, like whoever.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not taking a ton of Toney. Toney's price seems like a little silly to me, but I'd take him if I have Mahomes.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Let's talk some fallers here. I was a little confused by this group of wide receivers, DeAndre Hopkins, Michael Pittman, Devonta Smith, that are all falling for the second consecutive week. I think, look, part of this, I think, is that they're default ADPs when the tournament opened were just a little bit too high for the Superflex format.
That's all I think it is.
Yeah, I think that's most of it. But let's talk. I think Hopkins and Pittman have some interesting things to talk about. I can't decide what I want to do with Hopkins this year because I think the price is partially baking in some odds of him being on the Bills and Chiefs. It's I don't know.
I don't even think partially. I think this price is saying he is almost certainly not a member of the Cardinals.
Yeah, but I just don't know. But is it definitely guaranteed? It's I don't know. I'm trying to think of an example. Is there a good team that he could go to where we're not excited about his outcome? I guess it's that's the thing. It's when I think of the trade destinations, it's it's going to be good passing offenses, I think. Yeah. So.
Well, the obvious one would be the Bills. I mean, that's been the really obvious one.
Is that even that good of a spot for him? He's really made his hay. Yeah, I don't know, man. He's really made his hay off of being a really high volume guy and being he also has for his target volume, he also has a very high catch rate. That's just kind of been one of his things. I don't know if 32-year-old, 31-year-old DeAndre Hopkins, Diggs is going to be the intermediate deep guy who gets all that really high value stuff. And then Gabe Davis is the 9-route guy. If DeAndre Hopkins is a Bill, he is just simply fancy Cole Beasley. That really would be the role he would be used in.
I think that you're giving way too much respect to Gabe Davis there. I think Gabe Davis is coming off the field in some wide receiver stuff and however they have the deployment, because they don't run that much 2 wide receiver stuff anyway, but they would essentially have Hopkins as the wide receiver 2 to Diggs. I mean, he was still pretty good last year, and
really
Gabe Davis really struggled last year in a number 2 role. Yeah, I do think Gabe Davis would be most of the 9 route guy, but it's like, to me, it's kind of more of a Chargers situation where he's like fancy Jalen Guyton, and you've got the 2 clear top 2 guys in Hopkins and Diggs. Diggs would be the number 1, but
what the Bills did last year, even if you look at the route participation, Diggs was running like an insane, like 95% routes, and Diggs was only at 85% because basically what they're doing is like, I think on plays, where, there's some kind of like curl to a tight end or some kind of screen pass. They're like, hey, Gabe, we're going to give Diggs a break. You go out there and just run straight down the field, but we're not even thinking about throwing it to you. Like they're just having him out there on the field.
So nothing's changed, Gabe.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So I don't know. The route stuff might look like a little bit lower for Diggs and Hopkins, but like when they're on the field, their target rates are just going to be so crazy compared to Davis's.
One other thing on Hopkins is that in 2021, he had this fall off in fantasy points per game. He had, so let's see, in 2018, he had 21 points per game, then 17.6. These are PPR. 17.6 in 2019, 18.1 in 2020. So, all pretty solid. Falls to 14.7 in 2021. He bounced back from that last year, back up to 17 points per game. But in 2020 or 2021, he was playing like a little bit of a different role. He was kind of more of like, felt like a little more of like a deep threat than he'd been. Yeah, his ADOT actually jumped up to 13.1 in 2021 from 9 the previous year, and then it dropped back down to 10.7. So, that like maybe that would be like the downside if he were on the Bills. Maybe they would have him be kind of like the Gabe Davis, and as a field stretcher, maybe he doesn't have as big of upside, but he still scored over 14 points. Like where he's currently going, I think that's like not a terrible outcome. And then you have the potential that maybe he's like in the same kind of, like he won't be a true target dominator the way he was in Arizona, but I still think like we're talking probably 15 and a half, 16 points per game PPR on the Bills. So I kind of like him.
Yeah. The tertiary target earners on the Bills, like Davis, Dawson Knox, Deontay Hart, like they just don't have, that third guy that I'm really worried about drawing a lot of targets. So I think you could project a pretty high target share to Diggs and Hopkins if they're there together. So I think I'd be more excited about the Chiefs.
You guys don't buy the QAnon conspiracy theory about Gabe Davis's ankle, that he returned too soon from his high ankle sprain to help the team, and it limited his ability to get open for the rest of the year?
I definitely think that's possible, and I think that's one reason to stay optimistic on Davis if they don't trade for Hopkins, especially if his ADP. I'm not sure like how much of Davis's ADP is reflecting the Hopkins trade risk, but if he like opens up Best Ball Mania and Hopkins has been traded, if Hopkins has been traded elsewhere and Davis opens up Best Ball Mania at a similar ADP, I think he's a good pick because of maybe it is the high ankle sprain, but you talk about like day 3 running backs, like he's a day 3 wide receiver, and they would have just traded for DeAndre Hopkins. Like at that point, the high ankle sprain thing is like, I'm sorry you played through that high ankle sprain and it ruined your career. Like that's kind of, you get to that.
The downside risk with him being, replaced with a trade candidate or somebody in the draft just seems like he really relied on just being on the field the entire season. I think there's downside risk in his ADP, but like you said, if we're going into the season and it's just Davis, Diggs, and Deontay Hardy or whoever,
he's underpriced for sure. Then
he's a little underpriced, but I wouldn't say like massively underpriced.
I think he's like a, I don't know, probably 7th round value if he's the guy there.
So these are the guys going in front of him: Brandon Cooks, Treylon Burks, Deontay Johnson, Kadarius Toney, Mike Evans, George Pickens, Marquise Brown. I think he jumps some of those guys, but I still would like some of those guys above him. So,
me too. That's where I'm at too.
Okay. Pittman. So the buzz on the Colts is they're going to take either Will Levis or Anthony Richardson. Like I've struggled to see many other mocks that have them going without a quarterback there. I guess there's some chance now that even Stroud could be the pick at 4, but let's just say, 80% chance that they have some combination of Gardner Minshew with either Levis or Richardson to start at QB next year. what do you guys think? I guess starting with you, Davis, are you worried about Pittman just because of like the offensive environment with one of those sort of poor throwing quarterbacks in Levis or Richardson going there? Or do you think Pittman's talent could sort of help him, rise above at that
I don't know if
price?
Pittman is even that good, but honestly, yeah, it just sort of feels like, I don't know. I've never been that enthusiastic about him to begin with, I guess. Although he has so little competition in terms of like other good players on his team, it's all just the Colts are such an island of misfit toys. Alec Pierce and I mean, how many spark interesting day 3 wide receivers have they had over the years? Ashton Doolin and DeMichael Harris and then all the tight ends, Grants, like Kylan Granson and Jelani Woods are just like the same person, to me. I knew
if NFL All Day wasn't going to work when they gave me an Ashton Doolin moment. I was like, I think this thing might be dead.
Yeah, I mean, they just have no target earners. So this actually does feel like, I don't love Pittman, but this does feel like a spot where taking Pittman and Levis or Pittman and Richardson together actually makes a good bit of sense.
Pat, what are your thoughts on Pittman?
Yeah, I don't love Pittman. I think they're very similar to Davis's. I mean, he could be kind of like, one of the things with a rookie quarterback who, has some holes in his game, is that they may lock on to the one guy they trust. We've seen that. And like Cam Newton, when he came in, Steve Smith ended up being like this huge league winner because Cam Newton just like locked into Steve Smith and it worked pretty well. So I don't mind Pittman if you think that Richardson's going to be there. Richardson sucks like real bad at hitting throws underneath, but Pittman's more of an intermediate and downfield guy. I think he could maybe even be more of a downfield guy if he had a quarterback who could throw downfield. He's been
Wasn't Matt Ryan throwing in the ball?
Yeah. So like you look at like it's like, what does Pittman do? It's like, well, he has like a 10 ADOT or whatever. It's like, well, he probably wouldn't if Anthony Richardson was a quarterback and he's the clear top target with the wide receiver core that they currently have. So yeah, I don't mind him as you kind of scoop the value as he falls. I don't think I'll have a ton of him this year, which makes me like maybe even more inclined to just grab him now. Cause I'm not super high on the talent, but I don't know. Maybe that's the wrong way to think about it because maybe people will freak out if they do draft Richardson. And I don't care that much.
Yeah. I think it's a weird combo where like people will see Richardson as bad for Pittman, but just having the certainty of like knowing which quarterback he's playing with, like could just like boost his price a little bit. I think the guys where you don't know who their quarterbacks are, I think are just like artificially a little cheaper because people are like, who do I stack Pittman with? Like, I don't know. I'm going to grab the guy who I know I'm stacking with and just sort of let him slide a little. So I think his price is unlikely to change a lot post-draft. I could be wrong about that. And, to give a little bit of the pro Pittman case, I think there's like kind of two options for him. Like he kind of profiles as a guy who's either been like the best of bad options on teams and been kind of inefficient, or he profiles as a guy who could be really good, but his quarterback play has just really held him back from being efficient. And I think there's arguments on both sides of the coin there. I know like reception perception, Matt Harmon, to reference that again, he charted him in 2021 as having really high success rates for zone and man. And man, Pittman's just played with some real trashy quarterbacks. So like I'm willing to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt on the yards per route run and some of the efficiency stuff and say, hey, if he did have a good quarterback, I think there's more potential there. He's earning like, 22% targets per route run. Like that's a pretty good rate. But like, again, I don't think the situation at quarterback is getting better, unfortunately. So like,
it might get more fun. It might get more fun.
Yeah, it could get more fun. It could be, on the whole, not better, but like better in ways that are good for Pittman potentially. So yeah, I think
like better in ways like produce the occasional spike week.
Yeah,
like some weeks he has 2 targets, some weeks he scores 2 touchdowns. You could see it that way.
Yeah. So I think overall I'm like slightly bullish on Pittman, but I'll probably be pretty close to at market with him, and definitely fun to stack him up with Richardson or whoever it ends up being there.
Isn't probably the Richardson stack just going to be whichever one of the tight ends like randomly runs into 7 touchdowns, and 2 of those touchdowns happen in week 17?
I have a lot of Richardson, Jelani Woods.
I got so much of that too.
Chris Ballard.
I was looking at dynasty rankings earlier today, and Amico has Jelani Woods ahead of George Kittle in Dynasty, which just felt really optimistic.
Come on, man. That seems insanely optimistic. Given
what's going to happen. The Colts are going to draft like Luke Musgrave, and it's going to be a 3-man tight end rotation with Musgrave, Jelani Woods, Mo Alley Cox, and they're all going to play 30% snaps. It's
yeah,
here's
I mean,
here's what I'll say. Steichen doesn't do that though. Steichen he rolled out Dallas Goedert.
I think it is simply endemic. I think it is simply endemic to that building and that.
It's just in the water in Indianapolis. Something in the water there.
Like I don't. Also, honestly, I think it would be irresponsible to look at their tight end depth chart and be like, yeah, one of these dudes should be Dallas Goedert. Like Granson and Woods are both sort of unknown. Isn't there another guy? There's another guy, right?
Mo Alley Cox.
Jack Doyle retired.
Yeah, Mo Alley Cox. I don't know how. Yeah, I mean, look, and Pharaoh
Woods
Brown
is our generation's Mo Alley Cox.
So he is. That's the thing. So I think it would be a sign of maybe not being that good of a coach to be like, yeah, Jelani Woods, you're going to play 80% of the time when they have these guys who are all sort of equally capable.
Well, the issue with tight end is that like Dallas Goedert wasn't Dallas Goedert for like his first 2 or 3 years, right? Like it takes a while. So I think even if Jelani Woods turns into a superstar, it's probably not this year, but he's a large man who might catch touchdowns, which is why
he's a fun the fucking like Shane Zylstra stat line from last year, like 3 catches, 27 yards, and 3 touchdowns for the Lions. Like, I don't think it's crazy that Mo Alley could stumble into some random 2 touchdown games down the stretch and be a fun. If you take care of tight end with 2 catches, 20 yards, and 2 touchdowns, that can be actually a pretty.
Here's the other thing:
score tight end.
Everyone is talking about how inaccurate Anthony Richardson is, and guess what? They're right. He's super inaccurate. But you know what's easier to hit? The largest man on the football field. So maybe we get Jelani Woods.
Have you guys loved these Anthony Richardson stands who keep passing around the stat that he had the most dropped passes of any quarterback in the class? It's like, guys, we get the Anthony Richardson thing. Like once you've made the sale, stop selling. Like Anthony Richardson is not going to come in the league and can be completing 63% of his passes and be like hitting dimes to let's just let him be who he is. Let him be who he is. He's going to figure it out or not. But I think
I want to rerun the simulation of Florida and put Anthony Richardson with Kyle Pitts and Kadarius Toney 2 years ago and see what happens with that. That would be super interesting.
And Dameon Pierce.
And Dameon Pierce.
They were all teammates, and the coach said we want to use Emory Jones.
Yeah, I think the Richardson thing is like philosophical. Like, if Zach Wilson was 240 pounds and ran like Derrick Henry, would you like him or not? And I would like him.
Yes. I would still be, even after seeing what Zach Wilson had done in the NFL already, if Zach Wilson and Anthony Richardson body swapped today, I would.
No, I actually like the idea of Zach Wilson just coming in incredibly yoked. Holy shit, dude!
If they like mind melded or like Star Trek is the one where they I don't know. I'm not a Star Trek guy, but if they just swapped brains, right? I would be in on Anthony Richardson with Zach Wilson.
You'd be in on Zach Wilson's brain and Anthony Richardson's body, is what you're saying.
Yes, and just say like he'll figure it out, maybe.
Who planted the Anthony Richardson is Derrick Henry with a cannon arm comp? That's been an earworm that I haven't been able to get out of my brain when I'm drafting. He has
Blastoise cannons on his back is the Kyle Dvorak quote, is Derrick Henry with Blastoise cannons on his back.
That's really strong.
Yeah,
I mean, he's literally bigger than Henry and ran faster. Am I right about that? Or at least it's very
I think he
close.
ran faster. Like he is like legitimately more athletic and as big as Derrick Henry.
It's also like the other comp is like
seems good.
He's like Lamar Jackson speed, but 40 pounds heavier. That's another one. That's just like fuck. That's scary.
And the other thing is like he didn't run, I think, as much as Florida as he might in the NFL. So you're going, I think there's like untapped kind of upside / just a higher floor for what he can do as a rookie because he's just going to run a ton. We're playing a game, guys. We don't need him. Like, you're not an NFL GM. It doesn't matter.
You do not tell that to people on Twitter, dude. Do not tell them that they are not NFL GMs.
They hate hearing it, but look, you're not an NFL GM. Oh God, like he's not like. If he could just complete this like 2nd and 3, there would have been so much yards after catch on that play. Like, yeah, there would have, and he can't do it. But you know what he can do? Score a bunch of fantasy points because our game is designed a certain way.
Yeah. Before we move on to the rookies, I'm just gonna take one last swipe at a player while he's down in this chart. Guys, Wan'Dale Robinson, slot only player on the Giants coming off a torn ACL.
He's gonna ball.
Just don't.
So we were on ship chasing, and I think Gretch was talking us into maybe Gretch and Pete, but I forgot that he tore his ACL in like November.
Dude, it's like I'm okay with betting on him like in 2 years, but I'm like, dude, slot only player coming off torn ACL.
They signed Paris Campbell. They signed. They still have Sterling Shepard, and they signed who else? Did they? Jameson
Isaiah
Crowder.
Hodgins, Darius Slayton. They got a bunch of dudes.
But like Crowder and Campbell are like slot only players. Like they legit are slot only. Like you don't sign those guys if you think Wan'Dale.
Do you want me to give the bullish take?
Yes.
They think Wan'Dale's so good that they want to leave his role in the offense intact, but they're not sure when he's going to be ready. So they signed 2 guys to keep that seat warm for him, keep the offense functioning, and then when Wan'Dale's back, he will be restored to his throne.
But what they need to do is figure out a way to mind meld Jamison Crowder and Paris Campbell into one player, not swap. This is a different technology than we're doing with Zach Wilson and Anthony Richardson. We need to combine them because then they would actually be somewhat similar to Wan'Dale's skill set.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not touching Wan'Dale. I don't see the point, but whatever.
I don't really draft him either.
Yeah,
I don't think I'm that interested in him in best ball. But if you could just be getting him for free in dynasty leagues right now, like if people are just giving up on him, I would be.
I like that.
It's also one of those players that like PPR versus half PPR. I think you actually have to make a massive distinction between. To be honest, like he was running only slot and getting like
breaking news. Breaking news. Justin Watson just re-signed a 2-year deal with the Kansas City Chiefs for up to $6 million, $1.4 million guaranteed.
Oh, wow. That's going to be bigger than the Richie James contract. I'm quite confident.
That is for sure bigger than the Richie James contract.
All right, so forget we'll delete the Richie James portion of the podcast, and we'll
have some Justin Ross tweets to delete.
Yeah.
Let's talk running backs. I did on this chart, rookie running backs. Again, we're looking at the consensus big board rankings from NFL mock draft database and looking at underdog ADP and just trying to say, hey, which guys maybe have more projected draft capital versus their ADP, which guys look overvalued. So Abanikanda, again, I wouldn't take this chart as like gospel. Like Abanikanda shows up here as relatively overvalued. I'm actually not worried about that. My big takeaway with Abanikanda this week is that he went from like 200 in the NFL mock draft database rankings to like 100. So he's gaining a lot of steam on like mock drafts, which I think is a pretty good signal for how the NFL is viewing him. And I think there was just a bit of a lag there from his pro day to sort of see that show up in the data. So yeah, this data point actually made me a lot more excited about Abanikanda, and also guys like Bigsby, Roschon Johnson were sort of, and even your guy Deuce McBride, Dwayne McBride. He's kind of showing up pretty strong in this chart as well. So it's kind of just, confirmation bias for me. Of some of these guys I was taking, they're starting to get more of the draft capital projection, which is exciting. And
Dane Brugler puts out his draft guide on The Athletic, which is like just incredible. And he gave Abanikanda a 3rd to 4th round grade, which I think
it's great.
Made me feel better. He has him ahead of Zach Evans. He actually has him behind Kendre Miller and Roschon Johnson, and Tank Bigsby. So reasons to keep spreading it out among that group. But I mean, if he gets that 3rd round draft capital, it'll be big.
What did he say on McBride? If you have it up,
where did he have McBride? McBride, he has at 13th is a 4th round grade.
Okay.
Yeah,
still seems pretty.
I think McBride is a day 3 guy, but
yeah,
like part of it with McBride is that his weaknesses are real. He doesn't catch passes. He caught 5 career passes. So it's like, I'm more okay with him in a sense being a day 3 guy because like he is going to be more limited in terms of what he can contribute to an NFL team, but he's a super elusive runner. If he's not super, super slow, which we need confirmation of, but as long as he's like fast enough, like 4.65-ish, then I think he can be the type of day 3 guy that emerges as like a 2-down part of a committee. And look, in the 20th round, that could be a win. I've compared him to rookie Gus Edwards is basically what you're hoping he is.
There's some landing spots there where a 2-down grinder, big body guy could definitely pay off. At wide receiver, the one thing I'll say here, my takeaway from this week is Cedric Tillman is slightly separating amongst sort of like the tier 3, 4.
There is lots of chatter on him, and I think it is exclusively related to the fact that he's the only one who's normal adult size. I think NFL evaluators have looked at this class and they've said we would like someone who would not get their every shot blocked in an NBA game. Like, can we find one guy who could sub into an NBA game and not just immediately get his shit swatted?
That is actually a new event they're doing at the Combine next year, is just plugging a guy into an NBA pickup game and seeing what happens. But Tillman, yeah.
I want to see Anthony Richardson play some NBA pickup. I think he could hang.
Cool. Let's move on here. Unless
Mingo is the other guy I've seen
Mingo is rising a little,
recently. Yeah. And I think it's the exact same thing. Mingo is also very large. And so I think one of these guys will probably get drafted higher than he should. So I think Mingo, you could kind of take. I'm not really going there in best ball because I don't think he's very good. But if you're like taking Cedric Tillman a lot in the last rounds, maybe throw in a Mingo from time to time.
Yeah. The other guy I've seen a little bit is A.T. Perry, which I think is on the same lines of what we're saying. He's 6'3.5".
He's just adult sized.
He's also adult sized.
He's a little thinner. He's not as thick. Like,
no.
I think he's around 200.
Yeah, 6'3.5", 198. I think was his combine. But
he's
pretty
more
good
of a
speed.
Quentin Johnston. He's like arbitrage Quentin Johnston. He's good yards after catch, but not very good contested catch guy. So he's kind of like the big yak. He's like a big yak Brandon Ayuki type of dude, not a not giant Michael Gallup. Tillman's giant Michael Gallup.
Interesting. Okay. Let's talk some stack stuff. My takeaway from this chart, again, we're looking at double stack average ADPs, and this is in Superflex. So this changes a bit. Obviously, those purple bars, which represent the quarterback, those have all jumped way up from when we used to look at this chart. So it does change the prices around pretty meaningfully, essentially because, Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes, even though they're way different values in one quarterback leagues, in Superflex, they're only taking 12 picks apart. So it changes the math here. Anyways, the one that jumped out to me here was the Jets. And again, like, I'm not sure how much I believe this, but in betting markets on DraftKings right now, they have a 5% chance of winning the Super Bowl. They're only behind a handful of teams, like the ones you'd expect: Chiefs, Eagles, Bills, Bengals, etc. They got pretty good odds to win the Super Bowl, and like, people have not really bought into this Rodgers signing in the sense that they don't care. They're basically saying, "Hey, I want Garrett Wilson and I want Aaron Rodgers, and I do not care about any other player on the Jets." And I think that like guys like Lazard, hey, we don't love Lazard's talent. I feel quite confident he's going to be playing in 2 wide receiver sets, and Aaron Rodgers loves him. He's going to go to him in the red zone. He's super cheap. Tyler Conklin had a pretty good year last year with, Zach Wilson and Mike White at quarterback. He's dirt cheap. Whoever else you want to throw on there, I kind of like the Jets stack for some of the tertiary guys. And if we believe, that 5% odds to win the Super Bowl, they should have a good offense this year. And I'm not really sure why people are just ignoring the entirety of the offense besides Wilson. But Pat, what do you think about the Jets, particularly sort of the tertiary, secondary pieces on that offense?
Well, I do think that part of it is that there's some uncertainty about kind of what's going to happen with like who those pass catchers are. Like Corey Davis is still there, but it seems very likely to be cut. which I think makes it a little, but it still makes it like a little hard. Because what if he's not cut? Like
has Mercedes Lewis signed yet?
Oh God. But I actually do think the tight end part of it is I don't really agree with the Conklin part. Like, it's a deep tight end class. This is one of the spots I think where a tight end could go, because we have our spots where we want tight ends to go, right? That's not going to happen. We're going to get like 2 of the 5. We're going to be like, why didn't you take it? It's like the Packers 2 years ago when they didn't take a wide receiver. Everyone mocked them a wide receiver, and then they just don't do it. NFL teams don't cooperate like that all the time. So I think the Jets might be one where they take a tight end we didn't really want them to. And it actually does make quite a bit of sense. They use the tight end in that system. So I don't, the Conka part, not as much. I do think Lazard, as much as I hate to say it, is a pretty sharp pick. I mean, he's definitely going to be out there, and he's not that expensive. And if you're taking him, please don't take naked Lazard, but take him as a correlation piece. I like that. And then
I don't think it's Hardman. That. Yeah. Go ahead.
Nico Hardman's a pretty solid pick as well.
I literally forgot he was still on the team.
Yeah, so did everybody else. And I do think Corey Davis is going to get cut. So at that point, Mecole looks like he's got to run a fair amount of routes. Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy, but Allen Lazard got the most guaranteed money of any wide receiver this offseason. I just think he's like, I think you can lock him in to 2. I'm not saying he's guaranteed to have a good year, but if Rodgers is on the team, which is like if you're building a jet stack, please don't take Zach Wilson. It's going to be with Aaron Rodgers. Like, put Allen Lazard into 2 wide receiver sets in Penn. Like, they're not playing him in 2 wide receiver sets. He's priced around guys that I think it's pretty questionable if they're playing in 2 wide receiver sets. Zay Jones is the clear wide receiver 3 on his team. Donovan Peoples-Jones, probably a 3 behind Elijah Moore. Maybe you could argue that one. Tyler Boyd, clearly a 3 on his team. Then it's guys like that you hate, Adam Thielen, Josh Palmer, clearly a number 3. Like, Lazard is a clear number 2, being priced around gross wide receivers or guys that are very clearly a number 3 on their team. So I actually think the Lazard pick naked at his price, like 153, I think it's like one of the better picks out there, even without Rodgers stacks.
Yeah, and to your point about like the certainty of the contract and everything, he also goes into the draft where you don't have that much risk. Like a Palmer, if they draft somebody, Palmer has nothing talent-wise that makes us confident he's going to hold that job. If they draft really anybody on day 1 or 2, I'm like, okay, Palmer is where he should be, which is a number 4 wide receiver. And then, you think about guys like, I don't know, like even like KJ Osborne, like he's the number 3 target on his team. He's the number 2 wide receiver, but the number 3 target. That could change, So Lazard is actually like a pretty safe bet. And if you're just trying to like stack some single, if you're just trying to hit some singles in those rounds to help fill out your wide receiver room, which is I think a reasonable thing to do. And if you're correlating it and actually it becomes a single that turns into a home run because he scores, touchdowns in the right week for you in the playoffs. It's a good bet. I hate it, man, but it's pretty good bet.
It sucks. But like, again, to the touchdowns point, I think Lazard's just a pretty good, last couple of years, he's been a pretty good bet for touchdowns when they get in the red zone. 8 touchdowns in 2021, 6 last year. He was injured for a stretch of that. So
Allen Lazard sucks.
He sucks, but getting a guy who's locked into 2 wide receiver sets at his price is just like something you can't really find.
Wide receiver thirst has gotten out of control.
The other thing about Lazard is that he actually is good at blocking.
Yeah. Very
good. And the Jets care about blocking. That's why we didn't see Elijah Moore out there a ton. They had to have Corey Davis out there, and thank goodness Garrett Wilson was good enough. But that's something they care about. They also play him in line, or they did in Green Bay. They play him in line some. So like, maybe they're using like a 3 wide receiver set at time that essentially has Lazard kind of being like a glorified tight end. But like, okay, sure. Like it still gives me some touchdown upside. And I think he's just going to be out there a lot. And he does something, not just that for whatever reason, Aaron Rodgers loves him, but I actually think he does have the blocking skill set that the Jets are looking for, which should help him too.
Yeah. He also last year, just giving some of his like peripheral stats, 20% targets per route run. Like that's not elite, but it's solid. 1.6 yards per route run. Again, solid, capable NFL wide receiver. You know,
he's a professional. He's a professional wide receiver.
Yeah, he's going to be playing. Yeah. And like, what's really changed from last year when he was going? Last year when he was going the 7th, I was like disgusted at the price, or maybe it was 8th or something. But like,
no, he got expensive, and some people were
stupid.
all in. People were like, "This is Devontae Adams."
That was dumb, but like, what has really changed now, such that he should be going in like the 14th? I'm like, nothing.
But this is the, we're gonna spend the next 4 months talking about who the next Josh Jacobs is, right? And there probably won't be another Josh Jacobs, but like the lesson of Josh Jacobs partially is when a guy drops a ton in his draft capital, then the bet changes. Like it's an obvious point, but like the bet has changed a lot on Allen Lazard, even though the player hasn't. So I think he's a good pick.
I think the level of win that you're looking at here with Lazard is like Zay Jones from last year. Zay was a little bit cheaper. He was more like 18th round. But Zay Jones last year, 120 targets, 800 yards, 5 touchdowns, a couple big spike weeks. Like if you get that at pick 160 or whatever, that's like an awesome win in that range. So that's the only point there. I'm not saying Lazard has this massive upside, but like he's got the 800 yard, 8 touchdown upside for sure. All right.
Oh, we're 5 months away from the season. I underestimated by a whole month. This is insane.
Love it.
Cool. Well, let's again, our little best value game has been kind of thrown off. Let's do it anyways. We won't track these because it's like all fucked up with the Superflex data. I don't think we're gonna get August Superflex ADP data to really like see this through, but let's do it anyways. Let's just do this to benefit the people who are drafting right now in Superflex. Anyone want to start with their favorite player in Superflex right now?
I'll start. Jacoby Brissett. Buzz builds in August that he's the week 1 starter. And oh baby, my portfolio looks pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, a good one. I don't disagree in any way. I'll give a fake one. So I'll say that Malik Willis should get drafted in some of these. If either starting for the Titans, being on the 49ers roster, or as the handcuffed Ryan Tannehill after the Titans start the season 1-5 because they have no talented players. My actual one is Cordarrelle Patterson. Again, referring back to the research I was doing yesterday. I just don't really think there's any reason to believe that Tyler Algier is just going to get 20 touches a game. And we sort of remember Patterson being disappointing last season. And he is 32 years old, worth noting, all-time freak, like all-time athletic freak. He still had 800 yards and 8 touchdowns last year. Like, it's not like, I don't think he's like going to, just fade into oblivion in this offense, especially because, I don't know, they might be kind of fun, right? They like Pitts and London, and I don't know, but he's running back 56. That is quite, I don't know if he should be running back 56 and Algier should be running back 23 or whatever. Like that feels like a huge discrepancy.
Get them Tannehill or get them Lance. Get them something.
I mean, even Ryan Tannehill turns them into like, I'd probably pick them to win the division.
Yeah, I actually think they would be fun if they just had Tannehill. We saw the Titans be fun with Tannehill. I guarantee, that was 5 years of Tannehill ago, but still.
I like the Patterson one. Like you said, like I feel like my memory is that he sucked last year, but yeah, I was looking at those box scores too, and he was good. Particularly at the beginning of the year, it was obviously sort of like front weighted, but.
The production that is the thing, is a 32-year-old running back. You are probably thinking the production is going to be front weighted.
But it's such a good rookie class that you do need some of those guys. So I've thought about taking Patterson. True. I haven't really taken him, but I've thought about it several times, and I probably should have been taking him.
Yeah.
What can you do?
Okay. I like both those. The one I'll do. It is Alec Pierce, and it's somewhat similar to the Lazard argument in some ways, but different in others. I'll start with sort of the 2 wide receiver set argument. Pierce he's not a slot only player. He can play on the outside. We saw him do that last year. And I think it's pretty likely he's locked into 2 wide receiver sets next year. Not quite as confident as Lazard because the Colts could draft someone. It's not impossible, but I think quite likely, like I'd put it at 80% odds he's in 2 wide receiver sets because like the only guy that could really, I mean, there's not many guys in this draft class that can play in 2 wide receiver sets to start with. So Pierce, a second round draft capital guy, I think he's pretty locked into that. And then if you look at some of his numbers from last year, and I know JJ Zacharyson has talked about this on his pods, you know, he kind of pops as a guy who had a solid rookie year, not a great one, but some of the underlying stuff with him is like decent. In the numbers I look at, if you look at sort of PPR points per game, yards per route run, targets per route run, all of that stuff, he kind of shows up as like having a 65th, 70th percentile ish rookie year in the stuff I'm looking at. And I think JJ is pretty high on him in his year 2 model. So, you know, I think he's a guy that's got a little bit of that year 2 breakout potential that people are just kind of ignoring because he didn't really like pop in a huge way his rookie year. And we had so many guys that did. So people are forgetting about him a little bit. But yeah, I've been pretty heavy on Pierce. I think he's like one of my highest exposure players. Again, offensive situation is likely not going to be great, but you're just getting a guy who's locked into 2 wide receiver sets. Good rookie year. He's young. He's athletic, had high draft capital. It's just sort of the archetype bet that I think makes a lot of sense at like pick 170 or whatever of ADP that I'm taking quite a lot of.
I like him. Yeah. He pops for me in some stuff too. You know, he just got out there and he wasn't terrible and he has good draft capital and he's fast. So, you know, it's not like the most exciting bet of all time, but like he's priced well for that. So I take him as well.
No disagreements.
Awesome. Yeah.
Not a situation to get like real jazzed up about, but not like it's not an
Sam
Adam
has a
Thielen.
type. Sam has a type.
It's not the Adam Thielen recommendation. You know, it's not coming in recommending like if Adam
Lazard. Yeah, he just loves the solid little.
Hey,
the funny thing is that Lazard used to be a sexy guy when he like coming out of Iowa State. He was like big and strong and fast, and
yeah,
you know that's just what happens to these guys. You know, you turn 26 years old, and the fucking virgins are like, nope, not into that anymore.
It's so true. UDFA, right? Wasn't he a UDFA?
Yes, yeah,
Lazard?
and he was on the practice squad for 2 years.
So. His career has been an insane win, like an absolute. One of the most impressive outcomes that he could have had.
Yeah,
and then you have like
not drafted. Not drafted.
Yeah, he's like Walmart brand Adam Thielen's career.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And
also,
we sit here and go, man, not good.
Adam Thielen's career,
it's impressive.
It's really I think UDFA like basically came to like I'm gonna box the details on the full story, but like kind of just came to a tryout for the Vikings, like of a bunch
Thielen, of he went to the University of Minnesota State Mankato, and teams do like local tryout type stuff.
Yeah.
And basically Thielen came out and they were like, what? Like he's just like a hometown lad.
Yeah.
There was I think he was on the combine coverage. I heard him talking, and I think he said like someone showed up that like clearly had never played football at this tryout that got Adam Thielen an NFL job. Like there's just some random dude.
It's like the episode of Always Sunny where the Eagles host the tryouts. That's literally what Adam Thielen got his starting job from. Oh man. All right. Anyways, I guess final point. Like I do think you can make fun of like the type of archetypes in that range, but like when you're at pick 170 for wide receivers by ADP, like I do think just the single bets do like number one. I think that's a good archetype to go for in that range. And number two, a guy who's just out there running 90% of routes does have weekly upside, even if he's not good at football. So that's all I'll say.
Especially in best ball. Especially in best ball.
Yeah. It's a best ball only archetype for me, for sure.
Yeah. And Leone's been doing this awesome best ball manifesto on Establish a Run, which is free. You guys should check that out. And he's, one of the things he's noted is that it's so impactful if you basically have a full lineup or as close to a full lineup as possible. So we sit here in April, our chances of hitting on these picks are very low compared to August and September, right? A guy like Allen Lazard, sure. I mean, all of these guys can get hurt, but like dudes who definitely have starting jobs are pretty valuable. I think the Alec Pierce one, fits into that archetype as well, because it's like guys who project for starting jobs and aren't bad. That's why I give you on the Thielen one. I'm like, he's bad. He's not starting by the playoffs. But I think, Alec Pierce will be starting by the playoffs for if he's healthy for sure. And I feel the same way about Allen Lazard. Those guys are actually pretty valuable right now. You're trying to not find one of those guys, but find 18 of those guys. Yep. And it gets pretty difficult.
And to be clear, the Thielen thing is partially a bit and also exclusively in CJ Stroud stacks, which I'm going to get completely rugged on. But anyways, Pierce, I'm taking Pierce over Thielen 100 out of 100 times, unless I'm trying to do a stack that's not going to exist.
Unless you're trying to stack something that doesn't exist.
That's not going to happen. Then I'm wasting my money. But anyways, I think you think of guys in that range like Rashid Shaheed, you can dream big, had the top 5 yards per route run of any rookie with over 30 targets in the last 10 years. You can dream big, but hey man, he's probably not going to be on the field like that. Or if he is, he's going to be in throughout. Olave is obviously playing. Michael Thomas is going to be playing. They could draft someone. He's got no draft capital, no commitment to him. He could just be absolute zeros down the stretch. And those type of guys, sure, if Shaheed is going 30 picks later, I'm okay with a flyer on him. But I think you got to be a little careful of just seeing all the upside in those picks, because if those guys really did have upside, they'd be going higher. This
is also the draft you're right thing to me, which I disagree with people a little bit on, how to implement that philosophy. But if you're right, if it's round 15 and you already have been right, you've drafted a sick team, then what do you need out of that pick going forward? You need a guy who's gonna basically be starting and giving you a chance of a spike week in the playoffs, because you're probably already making the playoffs. So it's who's going to help me? And at that point, I'm it's April. I would like a guy who has a job, first of all. I would like a guy who's not going to maybe have a 30% route rate like Shaheed might, So it actually becomes, if you're right to that point, it's okay, I think, to swing for an occasional single as we try to fill in a lineup that's going to have 18 viable spots when we hit the fantasy playoffs. It's also why I draft a lot of rookies, because I think, hey, I've already made a lot of hits. I need guys who are going to be coming on for me at the end of the season, and heading into the playoffs, I've got a lot of viable spots. So it's not just old boring veterans, but I think that archetype actually has some juice. If you think I've already just crushed it with my early part of my draft, what do I need now?
Yep. I think that's a great point. Well said. Anyways, let's land the plane here. Davis, I know you've been doing interesting work with your newsletter, especially on the late day 3 running backs. Anything else in the works you wanted to talk about?
Well, I'm in my very first rookie draft of the year. I'm in this one league with Scott Barrett runs it, Matthew Berry, Evan Silva, all these dudes, all these heavy hitters, and I'm just going to say, if you've got the 109, the 110, the 111, the 112 picks like these, and your league mates are maybe not really locked in, they're not really ready for the rookie draft yet, I would start to trade those picks like normal first-round picks right now, because, Jalen Hyatt, Josh Downs, Zay Flowers, Zach Charbonnet, Michael Mayer, these are not really the profile of guys you want to be spending first-round picks on. Other than Kerrane, if you're in leagues with me, disregard this entirely and give me Trey Lance. And but yeah, I just the back half and honestly, I could see this being a scenario where guys who are going in the second round of rookie drafts end up being we look back 3 years from now, we're Dalton Kincaid is TJ Hawkinson now, and he was a second round rookie pick or something like that.
But that is going to happen in this class. And it's going to happen at running back position, and I think it'll happen at the tight end position too. There's lots of, we don't know which guys, but they exist, I think, in this class.
Awesome. That makes a lot of sense to me. Seems like the back half of rookie drafts this year is just weaker than it's been in the past couple of years when we've had really strong wide receiver classes that are sort of rounding out the depth there. Pat, what do you have coming up on Legendary Upside? I saw some articles coming out on sort of the later tiered running backs and wide receivers, talking about guys like Dwayne McBride, those types. Anything else you wanted to plug on Legendary Upside?
Yeah, so I finished up my running back and wide receiver coverage this week. If you want to check out the Dwayne McBride one, That's up there now. The entire portion of the article covering McBride is free. I also had a free post on basically daring people to snipe my quarterbacks, because I think I can build out even more correlation if I build a team stack that doesn't include a quarterback. Juice my lineups with like 3 team stacks and 2 quarterback builds. That was a fun one. I had 2 podcast episodes this week. Legendary Upside podcast. You can find that wherever you listen to podcasts. Sean Siegel came on. We talked through the rookie class in depth. He has some interesting takes, including the Israel Abanikanda one. And then I had the first mailbag pod that I'm doing. I had Liam Murphy and Kyle Dvorak on. We answered.
Did you guys get into rugby?
I tried. Liam did not take the bait. I said, I made mention of the fact that they did not ban the rugby play. I was like, Liam, they can just play rugby now. And he very maturely just sidestepped that and moved on. I was a little disappointed.
Amazing.
That's awesome. Well, check out all of Pat's stuff at Legendary Upside. Check out Davis's stuff at Automatic Absolutes. Awesome newsletter there. And we'll be back next week. Speaking of Kyle Dvorak, I think he'll be joining us. It'll be me, Davis, and Kyle with Pat out next week, chopping it up on some ADP movement. Awesome show, guys. We will see you next week.